Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
One Piece Fates Intertwined by Demonheart 12. What if the time difference between Luffy and Robin was much smaller? What would happen if he arrived on her island somehow before the Buster Call happened? How will their presence in each other's lives affect each other? Follow their adventures as they grow together and sail the seas in hopes of achieving their dreams. I don't own anything. Adios.
Family bonds. It's been a couple of weeks since Ace has accepted Robin and removed any doubts from his head about her. Robin and her mother have finished hiking up Mountain Kolub. Reaching the bandit's hut, Robin went and sat on a tree stump and began to read a book she had before the boys. Olivia now was practicing yoga or her form of it by zoning out the bandit's excess flirting. Robin could only laugh at her mother's funny attitude. Finally, after some while, Makino arrived holding a crate of drinks, causing the bandits to forget their swooning and drink. As Makino come closer to the mother of the group, she asked, "How are you doing, Olivia?" "I'm fine," Olivia first said, then she added, "Thank you for the job, Makino. It helped me find a constant income for my house." "Oh, no problem," Makino waved her hand, then said, "In fact, since you came, customers have doubled in number." Olivia just laughed a little with a blush on her. Then Makino approached the little girl who was engrossed in reading the back she had. Makino smiled, "Reading anything interesting, Robin?" Robin smiled back at her and exclaimed, "Yes. I'm reading about the island of Dressrosa. It's a huge island with a very interesting history. Though sadly, in recent years as I read the book it fell into a civil war of sorts." Makino smiled at her and said, "You must the smartest little girl I ever encountered." Robin simply hid beyond the book. She was reading from sheer embarrassment. They all then saw the bushes shake, announcing the arrival of the brothers. Luffy bursted first from the bushes, making a beeline to Robin, greeting, "Hi, Robin. How are you today?" Robin blushed as she made her way towards Luffy and said, "I'm fine." Makino smiled, saying, "Luffy, I understand you like Robin, but she's not going anywhere." This caused the children's faces to redden a little. Ace added as he came from the bushes, "She's right. Being too clingy might scare her away." Olivia then joined the fun, as she said, "It's very pleasant to know that my daughter's presence makes you happy." At this point, both children were red as a tomato. Luffy then began shouting, "Stop it." This only made them laugh some more. Ace then noticed the book Robin was holding, and asked her, "What's that?" "This is a book. Want to read it?" the girl told him. Ace then hummed and replied, "Let me see it." As he was handed the book, he looked at it skeptically, and said, "Can't say I ever saw this?" Robin was seriously shocked. He has never seen a book. That was unbelievable in her mind. "As a matter of fact, I don't think I can read," Ace declared. Robin was now seriously shocked. Reading to her was essential as breathing. For Ace to come and say he doesn't know how to read was blasphemy. Then Luffy butted in, saying, "Yeah, me too." He said at first, then continued, "Maybe that's why I didn't enjoy reading so much in the library tree." Ace then laughed, saying, "You and a library in the same sentence, never thought I'd ever heard it." Robin looked at them and shouted, "You really can't read." Both boys fell to the ground from her sudden outburst as they nodded their heads. "But how?" she said. "I mean, knowledge is the power that helps us, humans. It causes us to ascend to a higher level of understanding and building bridges of culture. It's the greatest tool that mankind has ever created." Both boys looked at her with wide eyes from the sudden speech she had just given. Seeing this, Robin hid her face behind her book and muttered shyly, "At least that's what I think." Ace then stood, saying, "Okay, if you like reading that much, then I guess it's cool." Luffy then added, "Robin being smart is what makes her awesome," said girl blushed at this. Olivia stood there smiling at her daughter's love of knowledge. Then a very bright idea hit her as she thought about how she can put her brains into good use too. Sure, she was working at the bar, but she also needed to use her intellect. As the sun rose on Dawn Island to announce the beginning of a new day, both boys were currently making their way to the bandit's hut to meet Robin. Once they reached it, they were greeted by a very weird sight. Beside the hut, there was a blackboard. In front of the said board were 3 boxes acting as seats as Robin, who was wearing a huge smile, looked back at them, was sitting on one of them. To say that the boys had a bad feeling about this was the understatement of the century. Suddenly a bell rang from behind the board. That's when Olivia came from behind, saying, "School in session, boys." Both boys quirked an eyebrow as a tumbleweed appeared out of nowhere rolling beside. So Luffy inquired, "What is school?" For him it was a foreign word he never heard before. Robin said excitedly, "School is where you learn new things." Then she continued, "And since you two don't have any type of education, Mama decided to be our teacher to help you read and write." Both boys then felt a cool chill travel down their spines as Robin said, "Teacher, clearly remembering what someone once told about his horrible experience with them. Olivia then asked with a smile, "So boys, aren't you going to join us?" What happened next wasn't what she expected. She thought the boys would be thrilled or at least interested in this new opportunity, but they both ran and climbed up a tree as they were afraid of her. "Yeah, thanks, but we don't want to get hit. Gramps' fists of love are good enough," Ace said from the tree, causing Olivia's curiosity to rise as she asked herself why he thought she was going to hit them. "Yeah, I thought you were nice, but you're a teacher. Teachers are bad," Luffy said. Both girls now tilted their heads in sheer confusion as from where they got the idea that teachers are bad. "Now boys, who told you that teachers are bad?" the women asked as nicely as possible as not to freak them out. Both boys replied at the same time. Sabo did. Olivia quirked an eyebrow as she inquired, "But why did he tell you this?" "Because he used to have teachers and they used to beat him all the time," Luffy answered before Ace shoved his foot on his mouth screaming, "Luffy, stop spreading our secrets." "Wait," the woman called out for them, "Sabo, your deceased brother used to have teachers, but I thought he used to live in the jungle like you did." Ace sighed as he began to speak. "Unlike us, Sabo's parents are still alive, but he didn't like them that much because they never treated him like a son." Olivia then asked, "What do you mean, never treated him like a son?" Ace then explained further, his parents never really cared about him. To them, he was only their property that had used to rise higher in their status. He stopped for a while, then carried, and of course, they brought him teachers to make him smarter. However, they would always beat him whenever he did anything wrong. Olivia could only think of one possible case that could explain what he was saying. Was he a noble? She asked, earning a nod from Luffy before he was slugged by Ace for slipping the beans. This would explain everything, Olivia concluded. Nobles were known to be heartless people only caring about their status and reputation. The worst of them was the celestial dragons, who after creating the world government were given immunity, by who knows who, from any type of judgment, allowing them to get away with all types of crimes including abduction, slavery, and even murder. Olivia shook her head and called out for the boys saying, "But not all teachers are bad," she said, trying to persuade them. She looked at them and both boys weren't convinced. "Okay, plan B," she said in her head. She then went to Robin and whispered something to her. Robin smiled at her as she nodded her head. Robin then got up and looked at Luffy saying, "Please Luffy, just try it this once for me." Luffy tried to ignore her as he began to fidget in his place, but finally, he gave up and came down saying, "Alright, I try it, this once." Ace looked at his brother and slapped his forehead as he looked at Robin saying, "You truly are evil." Earning a Gigavia then looked at Ace, who stubbornly refused to join the other two. Then she found a way to bring him down. "You know, Ace, that many of the things I'll teach you, you'll need if you ever became a pirate," she said. "Like what?" Ace asked. "Did you ever hear about scurvy?" she asked him. "What's that?" "You'll know about it if you come down." Ace threw a glare as he said, "You're good." Finally, he jumped from the tree sitting beside Luffy and Robin. Olivia giggled at the boy's remark as she made her towards the board. She then began listing a random bunch of subjects that she was going to teach the boys, such as math, physics, chemistry, geography, and etc. She then said, "But since two of you don't know how to read or write, we'll begin with that." She then began writing the alphabet on the board, telling the boys which letter is what. As a small trail, she gave Luffy a book and told him to read. Luffy gulped, afraid of being beaten, but he began slowly reading the title, Ryan Boat, Rainbow Miss Tea. As he went further, his face began turning red from reading, causing all the surroundings to look at him with concern. That's when Olivia stopped him saying, "Luffy, are you alright?" "Yeah, but reading really hurts," he said, causing the blink. Olivia brushed it off as nervousness because it was his first time doing such a thing. She took the book and gave it to Ace, who read it with as much difficulty as Luffy was reading it. As the days went on, both boys were beginning to become better with their reading and writing. However, Ace was much faster than Luffy. The young boy would have serious difficulties when he's reading, writing, or even trying to concentrate. Finally, Olivia asked Luffy the following question. "What do you always mean when you say your head hurts when you think?" The boy replied, "I don't know, when I try to think, it's very hard." Olivia looked at the boy with concern as to what may cause him to have difficulty in reading or thinking in that regard. Then it hit her. The boy was made out of rubber. His nerves must also be made out of rubber, which causes electric signals to have a hard time moving from one nerve to another. From that day forward, Olivia decided that Robin would assist Luffy during class time to ease whatever pain he was having by helping through difficult words or concepts. After 3 full months, both Ace and Luffy had fully learned, the latter with Robin's assistance, how to write and read. Then one day when they finished their class, both boys were excited for some reason. Robin came up to them and asked, "Why are guys so excited?" Luffy began saying, "Because we're going to." He was shut down by Ace hitting him with a pipe on his head. The boy looked at the girl and said, "Nothing important, Robin." He tried to lie. Robin simply raised her eyebrow, not convinced, as she began to probe then even further. Finally, Luffy told her, "We're going to fight today." Ace shouted, "Damn it, Luffy. Do you have to tell her everything? Didn't we agree not to tell her this so she doesn't get the wrong idea?" Luffy looked at him, and then at Robin, as he spoke, "We're definitely not going to fight today." He lied horribly. Under normal circumstances, Robin would have laughed, but now she was afraid of what happened last time they fought happening again. She asked fearfully, "But why? Did you forget what happened last time?" Ace looked at her as he began explaining, "Not that type of fighting. What we mean is hitting each other. We're basically going to train to become stronger." Robin was confused as to why they would hit each other to become stronger. Was it worth it? Luffy then came up to her. "So Robin want to come to see me beat Ace?" he asked. Ace laughed as he said, "Not happening. It's a known fact that older brothers are stronger than smaller ones, especially ones with weak devil fruit powers." Luffy then tackled Ace to the ground screaming, "My devil fruit power is awesome." They then began a mini dust cloud. Olivia and Makino then came up to them asking, "What is happening?" Robin said in a weak voice, "They're going to fight to get stronger." Makino merely shrugged, getting overtime used to this. Olivia scratched her head a little, then shrugged herself, as boys are always gonna be boys. Robin on the other hand felt sick in her stomach as she began to step backward. She then accidentally bumped into Dayton, who said, "Hey, watch where you're going." Robin nervously turned around and began apologizing. Sensing something wrong from the girl, she crouched on one knee and asked her, "What's wrong?" "They're going to fight. I hate fighting," the girl said with sadness in her eyes. "Never been in one." "No, but I was always being hit by everyone around me. It's not fun," Robin said. Dayton looked at her and said, "Listen, kid, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a tough place out there. When you ever get in a fight, it's not about who hits the most, it's about who gives the last hit. Sometimes to win it, you have to wear out your opponent in order to get the last hit." Robin looked at her with wide eyes, and she said, "But that sounds horrible." Dayton wasn't shocked by the fancy word the girl used. She was sure that she used this word because she was going to use a fancier one that Dayton couldn't get. But under all that smarts, there was a little girl, so Dayton said, "The boys have lost enough. To them, being strong is the only way not to lose anyone anymore." She stopped for a while, then added, "It's a mean place out there. Either you got to be tough back to it or you get eaten and thrown to the side." Robin was shocked for a split second, but then she nodded. Life wasn't fair to her in the least those last previous years. She looked at the brothers who were talking about who was going to beat the snot out of the other. She then looked at her mother. She walked toward her and asked her, "Mama, can I go with them?" Olivia was about to say no, as Robin added, "I promise I won't fight." Olivia then looked at her daughter, who was using her puppy eyes look, causing the woman's heart to melt as she agreed. Robin went out to the boys and said, "I'm going to come with only to make sure you're okay after your fights." Makino, who was watching from the side, laughed at the girl, knowing who she was planning to watch over. Olivia then came beside the boys saying, "Boys, now I expect to take good care of her." Luffy declared, "Yeah, no one's going to hurt her." Ace said, "You can count on us." Olivia then leaned forward and said, "Good," but then pulled the boys toward her, wanting the next part to be between them only, because if anything happens to my baby girl, whether it's your fault or not, being taken to impelled down will be the least of your concerns. Both boys shivered as one word went through their minds, scary. Olivia then pulled away saying, "And don't go too hard on each other," she said with a sweet smile hiding a malicious aurora. Robin then came beside them saying, "So let's go." Both boys jumped from surprise. Luffy then gathered his bearings as he grabbed Robin's hand and said, "Yeah, let's go." Luffy then ran into the forest, taking a blushing Robin with him, followed by Ace. Makino then asked Olivia when she told them only from the woman to say, "Nothing important." "Gum gum pistol," Luffy shouted at the top of his lungs as he launched his arm towards Ace. Said boy stepped to the side, dodging the hit, and grabbed the hand before yanking Luffy towards him like a rag doll. He then pinned him down saying, "So that's my 100th for the day, right?" "No, that's 99th. There's still one round left," Luffy argued. Robin looked at them and said, "Honestly, both of you are bad at math. You haven't passed the 60th round yet." Both boys then began laughing. Ace explained, "Usually it was Sabo who'd take care of keeping up with the rounds. But now that he's gone and we don't know how to count, we're having a problem with counting." Luffy then began lamenting their time with Sabo by saying, "Man, I really miss him. I still remember when I first meet him when I formal." Ace then began laughing and said, "Yeah, it was one heck of an adventure. I still can't believe that you." Suddenly Sabo's part of Ace's brain told him that letting Robin know what happened the first time they meet Luffy was a very bad idea. "Why did you stop, Ace?" Robin asked him, wondering why he stopped abruptly. "Well, it's really nothing," Ace said, waving his hand hoping to make her forget. Luffy looked at him and said, "We're talking about the time you allowed that Porkamy guy to kidnap me and torture me all day." "What? Why?" Robin asked with a pale face. She looked at Ace, taking her Hana. Forming a hand on his shoulder, she tapped gently on his head before whacking him hard, causing a huge bump to form. "Why would allow such a thing to happen?" Robin asked frantically. Well, Ace tried to come up with an excuse only for Luffy to speak before him. "That's because I found their treasure." "Luffy, that's supposed to be a secret," Ace yelled at him. "No," the boy shouted. Robin's our friend, we can tell her.
He then looked at said girl and said, "You see, there was a place called the Great Terminal where all junks used to be thrown there, but also nobles used to throw their jewelry there too." He said, shocking the girl that nobles were actually throwing jewelry away. He then continued, "Thugs and crooks used to steal them so we couldn't compete. That's why Ace and Sabo used to resort to doing ambushes and stealing said items in a flash, or just taking small bills."
Wait, there's something I don't get. The nobles throw away jewelry, the girl asked more than said. Yeah, they do. It's because they probably got bored of it. Ace said, shocking her further. It was like the nobles were practically showing off in front of the lower classes. Robin shook her head and said, "Still, that doesn't excuse your behavior. You should have protected him." Ace looked at her, then lowered his head in shame, remembering the incident. "I know, I'm sorry," the boy said as Robin helped him up. She then said, "It's okay, it's not like you tried to kill him." Ace chuckled nervously, praying to every entity that she doesn't know about that. Only for said entities to laugh in his face as he saw Luffy won his big mouth. He then said, "Ah, damn." Luffy then interrupted them by saying, "Wait, didn't you and Sabo try to kill me before I was kidnapped?" Robin's head wiped around toward Luffy as Ace screamed, "Damn it, Luffy, can't you keep a secret? Didn't we agree that this little thing never be mentioned again?" Luffy just laughed at his friend brother. Robin, on the other hand, wasn't having much fun like Luffy. His brothers tried to kill him. His own brother tried to kill him. Why? Just because of some money. She looked at Ace with a calm, almost expressionless face as she formed a hand on his shoulder and began slapping many times. Ace at this moment finally understood what the phrase, "hell knows no fury than that of an angry woman," meant. Robin couldn't think straight. She thought she had it hard. Luffy was abused by Grandpa, thrown into the forest, and almost got killed by his brothers. Even with all the harsh treatment she had been through, no one ever tried that on her. Well, until the world government came and the locals went bananas. She only came out of her rage when someone shouted at her. "Robin, stop," Luffy shouted, causing her to halt. He then over to his brother, who began rubbing his sore cheek, and said, "Wow, Luffy, your girlfriend sure packs quite a punch." "She's not my girlfriend," the boy retorted back. "Why?" Robin could only ask. Luffy then looked at her and began speaking, "Because he's all I have." She then noticed the anger in him began rising to the surface slowly, though he kept a calm face. "Deiden is a bandit and I hate them. Gramps is always beating me. Makino isn't here all the time." He then took a deep breath and shouted, "Being alone is worse than being dead." Robin then ran away, crying that her friend shouted at her. Luffy tried to reach out. "Robin, wait," he said as she disappeared from his sight. He then began sobbing, "I wanted a fight, but not like this." Ace stood beside him and said, "It's alright, let's go and apologize." As they stood up to follow her, Ace noticed something wrong, and asked with sweat running on his like rain, "In which direction did Robin go?" Luffy then pointed behind them. "That way," he said as his brain finally processed what he said. Both boys now ran after the girl to save her life. Robin was now running in the depths of the forest with tears on her face. It hurt her so much that her best friend just shouted at her, but she already forgave him. But what she couldn't get was, why was he sticking up to Ace after all the horrible stuff he put him through? She thought about that question till she realized that it was the same reason she stuck with him. He had no one like her. He was lonely and needed someone to be friends with. Just like her. Just like Ace. She then took a decision to go back to the boys, but she stopped in her tracks when she came across something rather weird. It was like a huge scorched field. Her curiosity got the better of her as she went exploring. She explored for 5 minutes before she found something that scared her down to the bones. A charred human hand was sticking out of the ground. This caused her to let out a scream. She then heard what sounded like people coming her way. They were all dressed in hazard suits, which gave her a very bad feeling. There were 5 of them, all looking evil than the last. One of them then spoke, "Another survivor, come on, let's get this over with." They all then wiped out flamethrowers and aimed it at Robin, who saw her life flash in front of her eyes. She gulped, not wanting to die this way. As she closed her eyes, she prepared for the worst. Then a scream from one of the men broke her attention. She then him on the ground groaning as he said, "I felt like someone punched me." He then saw someone coming from the distance shouting, "Stay away from Robin." Luffy screamed, causing her to smile. Then another man toppled over as Ace sprang out of nowhere saying, "Get out of here, Robin, we'll handle it." The girl nodded and then ran away, leaving the boys to fight. As she reached deeper into the forest, she stopped. Was she seriously going to keep running away from her problems? She then remembered what Deiden told her about the world being mean and what to do. Was she going to allow the world to be mean to her, and now her friends and she will stand idle? No, that wasn't going to happen. She then went back to help the boys, hoping she isn't too late. Currently, the boys were finally cornered. They both suffered from minor burns, but something told them they would need a miracle to escape this one. As the men drew closer, one of them said, "You should have run with your little friend instead of playing hero." Ace sneered at him, causing the man to laugh and say, "You're like kittens who think they can play with the lions. Well, goodbye now." As they were about to ignite the boys, multiple arms sprouted from their bodies and held them tight. Both boys looked around and saw Robin as she said, "Take them out. I can't hold them forever." Not wanting to be told twice, both boys went medieval on them. They then grabbed Robin and made a run for it before more reinforcements came. The children now made it to the depth of the forest far away from the men after them. Ace looked at Robin and asked her, "How the heck did you end up there?" "I guess I lost my way back home." Robin answered truthfully, but it was her time to ask that question, "What is that place, to begin with?" Both boys stiffened upon hearing that question and averted their gaze, giving Robin the message that they didn't like talking about that subject, so she decided not to carry on in her investigation and told them, "Let's go home now. My mama must be worried. It's growing dark." Both boys shared a look of horror before nodding, causing Robin to raise an eyebrow and say, "My mama threatened to bury so deep in the archaeologist will find in a million years, right?" Both looked at each other and screamed in horror, "That's what she was going to do to us." Robin laughed at their silly behavior, saying, "Don't worry, guys. My mama couldn't harm a fly even if she wanted to." "Okay." Luffy at first spoke, then remembered something, but didn't Salt tell us she tried to shoot Gramps the moment she saw him? Well, Robin trailed off a little, leaving an astonished Ace comprehending what he just heard. She did think he was trying to blow up Ohara. This caused Ace's mind to snap back to reality. "Wait, what? Gramps tried to blow up your island? Man, I knew he was sick trying to get us in the Marines. But this just takes the cake." Ace grumbled, thinking his Gramps may threaten their island next. Before Ace can get any crazier thoughts, Robin clarified the situation. Mr. Garp wasn't trying to blow the island, and he sure ain't planning to blow Dawn Island. It was actually the mean world government guy that Luffy tricked and saved my island from that tried to blow up Ohara. Ace blinked and looked at Luffy, who was smiling like a loon. He ruffled his hair, saying, "You expect me to believe someone is due?" He stopped remembering Robin's reaction when once called Luffy dumb and how Robin got super defensive, so he corrected it, "Weak as Luffy saved your island." Luffy and Robin looked at him and said, "Oh yeah, we never told how we met." "What? Why?" Ace asked, offended. "Maybe, because you were being mean to Robin," Luffy muttered quietly, though Ace heard him. "I wasn't being mean. I was being cautious. Didn't you learn anything from that time when Grandpa sent us into a whirlpool to convince us to join the Marines?" Ace said, causing Robin to fall on her knees while saying, "Is he crazy or something?" Ace looked at her and said, "The judge and the jury still aren't sure about that." Then he looked at them and said, "So tell me, how you met lovebirds?" This caused Luffy to scream at him, and Robin to blush heavily. After getting over their embarrassment, both the children told him how they met, how they intercepted CP9, and how Garp punched and saved the island, giving her mother a new chance. "So wait a little, your mom is criminal for reading some dumb old language." Though angry he called her mother's life work dumb, she swallowed it and said, "Yeah, that's about it. And you were actually being bullied. Man, how I wish I was the one there. At least I could have thrown a decent punch, unlike Luffy." Ace finished. Robin and Luffy looked at him and Luffy said, "You still didn't believe she was bullied?" "Well, it's hard to believe someone as nice as you can get bullied," Ace said. "Well, people with devil fruit powers, especially children, get bullied. I mean, didn't Luffy tell you about the children in?" Robin said, only for her to stop mid-sentence as Luffy waved his hands telling her to stop. Ace got the message though and said, "What?" He looked at Luffy and said, "You were being bullied and never told me." Luffy looked at the ground and said, "I told Makino." "And what did she do?" "She told me to ignore them and be the better person." "Idiot." Ace then thought of something and asked, "Did Sabo know?" Luffy puckered his lips and lied horribly. "Nope." Ace would have laughed if he wasn't so mad. "Why tell him and not me?" "I didn't tell him. One day, he came to the village with me to talk to Makino, and the children began throwing rocks at me." Luffy stopped a little while Robin frowned, remembering her first night here. Then he carried on. "So he beat them up for me, and went back to the mountains and agreed to never talk about it." "And never tell me because," Ace said. "Because we wanted you to be safe, Ace. You're our older brother. We didn't want to get harmed just to beat up some people." Ace calmed down and said, "It is fine. But never hide something like that again." "Okay," Luffy said as he hugged Ace. The older brother groaned but hugged him nonetheless, though he smiled while doing that, remembering his vow to never die on his brother. Robin looked at them and smiled, though she wished she had a sibling for herself. They then continued walking back home. It was now in the afternoon. Olivia was starting to grow nervous, pacing back and forth. "Where are they? They should be back by now." "Calm down, Olivia. The boys are strong enough to take care of her," Makino said. "I know that, but I can't help it," the white-haired woman spoke. As soon as she finished, the children came forth from the forest. Olivia ran and hugged Robin. "Thank God, you're back. I thought you got hurt or something." "Don't worry, Mama. Luffy kept me safe," Robin said as Ace shouted, "What about me? I'm not chopped liver, you know." He finished, causing the girl to laugh. Olivia then noticed both boys were roughed up a bit and asked, "What happened to you guys?" "Nothing," Luffy said unconvincingly. "Okay," Olivia said at first, but she then looked at Luffy, fully aware of his inability to lie, "So Luffy, what happened?" The boy fidgeted uncomfortably before spilling the beans. "Robin and I had a fight. So she accidentally ran to the Great Terminal where she was almost taken out by Goa Kingdom soldiers who kills anyone who goes there. But we managed to rescue her on time. But then Ace and I got trapped, and if it wasn't for Robin's help we might have died." He finished taking a deep breath. Olivia hummed, but Robin quickly said, "It's my fault, Mama. Please don't bury them in the earth." This caused the ex-scholar to laugh as she couldn't believe that the boys took her threats seriously given that they can beat animals over 100 times her size. "Don't worry, I'm not burying anyone. But what is the Great Terminal?" The boys then told her what they told Robin earlier. But then Robin remembered something from the day she first came. "Luffy, does the Great Terminal fire have to do anything with why it's scorched?" The boys then shut their mouths tight, before Ace let out a sigh and said, "We're going to have to tell you sooner or later. It seems it's sooner." Ace began talking. "You see Luffy, Sabo, and me. I, earning a nod of approval from Olivia on how he was using right sentences and proper pronouns, used to raid Goa Kingdom for food, and usually sell stuff we found in the Great Terminal before the fire. One day, we ran into a guy who recognized Sabo. It turns out he was his dad. That's when we knew he was a noble, and days moved on and forgot that ever happened. But his dad didn't, and soon enough he made his reappearance. He stopped letting Luffy talk this time. The boy started talking sadly. "One day, when we searching for stuff in the Great Terminal, Sabo got caught by Blue Jam and his ex-pirate crew on the orders of Sabo's dad. Then he also caught us. Sabo's dad then gave him two choices: either watch us die or he would go with him, causing the girls to gasp at how his father could such a thing while Dayton who nearby spat on the ground. The boy carried on. So Sabo chose the latter." The boy stopped as Ace talked again. "Blue Jam then took us to his hideout and forced us to haul crates all over the Great Terminal for over 2 days. During those 2 days, I tried my best to convince Luffy that Sabo was better off with his parents. He said only to be cut off by Robin." "Why did you do that?" "To cut my losses. I knew I lost one. I couldn't bear losing the other in a reckless rescue plan which could end with both of my brothers under the dirt. Furthermore, I didn't where Sabo's house was in the first place. Going there would have killed us even if I found him. I know it sounds like I sacrificed him, but back then we were outclassed, outmanned, outplanned, and outgunned. There was no way we could have saved, so one can get to judge me." He shouted, causing her to be quiet and nod. "As I was saying, we were forced to haul them for 2 days, and when we were done, they told us what they were really for." Luffy then talked. "They were explosive crates like the one we learned about the other day. They were given to burn the terminal down so the kingdom could be blessed by the celestial dragons, whatever they are. In return, they become nobles themselves." He was stopped by Dayton saying, "Now that's sick. Why didn't you tell us during back then? We didn't know what to do. It was just so frustrating we got lost." Luffy defended himself and Ace as he continued. "So when he told us the truth, he tied us in his ship and left us to burn with the others. But we managed to escape only to find him waiting for us, telling us that he was tricked, and if he was going down, he was taking us down with him." Ace then continued the tale. "So we tried to fight, but they got us and said if we gave him our treasure or pirate fund, as we called, he lets go. Of course, he lied. When he tried to kill Luffy, something happened that's caused his men to fall on the ground knocked out and foaming. At that moment Dayton came and stopped him from killing Ace and me. She tried to run, but Ace refused to back down, so she stayed while the others took me out of there." Luffy spoke. "We fought with him, and eventually managed to kill him." Ace told them, shocking everyone, that he killed someone. He stopped and said, "It was either him or he would go after us. Don't patronize me." So he continued. Dayton then used herself as a shield to protect me from the fire. She was seriously injured though, so we were forced to hide in the forest beside the burned terminal. That's when we saw Goa Kingdom soldiers burning and killing the survivors. It took us a couple of days, but we finally made it to the hut. That's when we learned Sabo was dead, after our arrival by a couple of minutes. I guess you all hate us now because you know we're the reason so many people died." Luffy spoke quietly. Makino smiled and hugged him. "Of course not, Luffy. You and Ace were tricked into doing something you didn't know. It wasn't your fault. Indeed, you're still children, Luffy. How could possibly fathom such a horrible thing was on your backs while you couldn't even read? Don't blame yourselves." Olivia chimed in. Luffy and Ace felt the two women wrap both of them in a big hug that Robin squeezed herself in with the bandits clapping in the background. When they came out of it, Robin asked, "Was that how Sabo died?" "He was burnt in the Great Terminal trying to get back." Ace and Luffy looked down before Ace looked and said, "No, but we won't tell you now. Soon enough though, we're still not comfortable talking about it." Robin wanted to argue, but her mother stopped her and shook her head, telling her to let them have their time. She understood and told Ace, "Okay, I'll wait. And it seems that it's time we go, so good night everyone," Olivia said as she carried Robin and began to walk away with Makino following. The boys then went to their treehouse to rest, leaving Dayton stunned. What the hell about dinner? As Robin was walking with her mom and Makino, she looked at her mom before she talked. "Mama, it's really nice of you to teach Ace and Luffy." She stopped a little before she added, "And thanks for not burying them." This caused the two elder women to laugh. My pleasure, dear. Everyone needs an education, she said before continuing, and if you keep spreading that idea that I bury people alive, you'll make me a serial killer. Olivia joked, making her daughter laugh before she took a more serious tone. But I'm truly sorry, you're taking things you already know. That's not true, Robin argued. I never knew you needed a log pose. You traveled through the Grand Line till you gave just that geography lesson. Robin went quiet before she spoke again. Mama, she said, grabbing both women's attention. Ever since you began giving us lessons I was thinking. She began humming, probably thinking of the best way to say what she's thinking. Her mother then encouraged her, say whatever you want to say. I promise I won't get mad. Robin said, really? Only for her to nod. The little girl then smiled, and said, could help learn the ancient language. This made her mother go pale white. But Robin continued, since she didn't notice her change in the dark. I already know the basics when I used to spy on the other scholars. But I still need help to master it. So can help me? She asked with a huge smile. Olivia began to tremble in fear. Her daughter has the basics of the ancient language. This is a death sentence by itself. She quickly went down to her daughter's level and held her firmly. Robin, she shouted, at first greatly unnerving the girl, who replied, Mama D, did I say something wrong? Noticing the fear, she calmed herself down before she talked again. Forget about the ancient language. Forget about the poneglyphs. Forget about the void century. Act as if you never heard of them. Why? Was all she can muster. Because those things only bring trouble. I was like one day naive and stupid. I left you alone with that horrible woman, and went searching thinking I would find the void century on the first island I would go to, fulfilling your dad's dream and mine as well. Back then I didn't know how much I gave up till I saw my dead friends surrounding me and the ship that we were in. She stopped a little, her heart and mind not proud of what she was going to say next. But it needed to happen. Now she understood what Garp was thinking when threatened the boys with prison. For all I care, the void century can remain void. There's no need to throw your life away for something stupid like a bunch of words on some old rocks. Please tell me you understand? Robin said, I understand, before saying, race you home. And taking off. Though while she was running, she was crying her eyes off. She couldn't believe what happened. Her mom just rejected helping her. Yet she could handle that. What she couldn't handle was her mom ridiculing all that she believed in, describing them as a bunch of words on some old rocks. Her idol just made fun of her dreams. This struck her to the core. It was as if her mom wasn't proud of herself anymore. She then remembered what her mom told her, what happens to people when they don't grieve. Yes, that's it. Her mother only needs to grieve her friends that died at sea before she can ask her again. Maybe in a couple of years, just to be sure that she grieved enough. Back with the women, Olivia was shocked that her daughter took this quite better than she thought, and she said, that worked out better than I thought. She looked at Makino, who raised her eyebrow and said, really? She then deflated and said, I know that she went to cry, but this is for her own good. She'll thank me when grows up and have a family. Now, I know what Garp feels when he puts the boys through those ridiculous situations. But the way you used is wrong. This gonna make her stick to her dream harder. And she gonna ask again, if not tomorrow then later. Olivia could only hope Makino is wrong and hope her daughter forget about the poneglyphs as she continued walking and chatting with her. As the days passed, the children's life continued as normal till a fateful day came. It was after Olivia finished giving her classes to them that Luffy and Ace dragged Robin to somewhere in the forest. Where are you taking me, guys? The girl asked. A surprise, Luffy said. Believe us, you're going to like it. As they finally reached a tree, the boys went around it and held something up. What she met with was a handmade pirate flag with a very jolly Roger. The boys then shouted with Luffy beginning, Robin for being our friend. Followed by Ace, for not minding that I was a jerk and accepting me. And they said in unison, and for proving you're stronger than you look, both of them remembering when she held those men while they knocked them out. They took a deep breath and declared loudly, you're a founding member of the ASLR Pirates. Really? The girl said. Yeah, look at the flag, Luffy said excitedly. Always leaving the heavy work for me, Luffy. Ace said with a laugh, before looking at Robin, and he began explaining, look at flag, as you can see symboling me, a blue S for Sabo, a yellow L for Luffy, and a purple R for you as in Robin. He stopped before he took a very sly grin, and said, don't worry, I put yours besides your boyfriend's. I'm not her, Luffy tried to argue but saw Robin crying. Both he and Ace went over and asked if everything was alright. She looked at them with a huge smile accompanied by 2 waterfalls from her eyes and said, I just love it so much. This made Luffy huge her and dance around with her as Ace smiled, remembering what he was going to do tonight. Sabo would have liked her, he thought. He then finally shouted, come on, let's go hunt, food ain't going to hunt itself. He then ran into the first with both children in tow. As night fell, the entire village was asleep. This included Olivia and her daughter, the latter being awakened from her slumber by a knocking noise. She opened her window only to see Ace holding a pebble as he said, rise and shine. It took a while, but now that you're up I need you to come with me. Robin grumpily retorted back, well, hello to you too. I'm sure whatever it is it can wait for tomorrow. Goodbye now. She went to close the window only for Ace to call out to her. "Please Robin, it's important. I promise you won't regret it." She looked at him and said, "Is it about Luffy?" "No, not everything is about your boyfriend." Ace said, choosing to ignore the glare he just received. "So will come please." "Fine," she groaned. She went to change her clothes only to stop and say, "But if it's not worth it, you'll wish to be buried," she said, making him laugh. She then quietly exited the house, following him, both unaware of a third presence going after them. Now both children were on the mountainside with Robin grumbling, "Couldn't it wait for tomorrow?" "Come on. We're almost there," Ace said. "You say that every minute," Robin complained back. He then lifted a tree branch and said, "We made it." Robin then saw quite a picture. It was a tree stump. On it was 3 small circular discs with a weird-looking bottle in the middle between them. What grabbed her attention the most was a small top hat with goggles on it that was burned. She asked Ace, "What's this?" as she wiped sleepiness from her eyes away. "You see, Luffy, Sabo, and I weren't always brother," he said, looking at the hat, then at her, smiling. "But one night we did a sake ritual. It is said that if 2 or more people drink from a cup of sake at the same time, they become brothers." Robin didn't need too much explanation to add 2 and 2 together as she said, "You want me to be your sister?" She then looked around and said, "Where's Luffy?" Ace laughed so hard, but luckily no one was around. He said, "Be real, Robin. You can't like Luffy the way you are and be his sister." He said, only for the girl's face to heat up and for her to say, "I don't understand what you mean." "Robin, you definitely know what I mean, and it'll be gross if you became Luffy's sister." Ace said, only for Robin to agree with him. She then looked at the hat and asked, "What, that Sabo's hat?" "Yeah, he would have liked you very much. Why did you bring it?" "Because I want him to be your brother too, at least symbolically. That is if you want to be our sister," he said as he opened the bottle and filled the 3 cups. He tried to look away to hide nervousness, but this made Robin read him easier. She smiled and said, "I'd be honored to." She then grabbed the cup of sake as Ace grabbed one of the other 2 with each hand. They clung them together, and then Robin drank hers as Ace drank his and poured the third on Sabo's hat as a symbol that he's also Robin's brother now. "So you're my brother now, right? Then teach me how to fight." "Say what now?" "You heard me. Why? Because I don't want to be weak all the time," Robin said, and then continued, "And don't worry, I'll talk with my mama first." She then smiled with a cheeky grin, "Unless you want your little sister to be kidnapped and taken." "Stop, I'll train you," Ace shouted, being sure that he won't have a good night's sleep for the next couple of days due to certain images that formed in his head. He still remembered the lesson about how celestial dragons take devil fruit users as slaves and torture them, and he would be damned to eternal hell if he allowed something like that to happen his new sister or Luffy for that regard. But he said, "You're too good. I mean, you accompanied me and Luffy for a couple of days. Now you know how to blackmail me, and when I said you're evil, they got mad," making the girl giggle. "Can I ask you another favor?" "Yeah, can you take to Sabo's grave to give him my respects?" "I'm sorry, Robin, but Sabo doesn't have a grave." "Why?" "Because he was killed at sea. I guess it's time to tell how he died." The girl sat listening intently to Ace as he began. "I'm not sure of the full details, but from what I heard, he was sailing in a small makeshift boat when a celestial dragon was coming to visit Goa. That dumb piece of fat then used a bazooka to blow him up. This hat is all that remains of him." Robin began crying for the brother that she didn't get now. But then an idea came into her head. As she wiped her tears away, she suggested, "Why don't you give a burial at sea?" "What does that mean?" "It means to gather all of his stuff, put it on a boat and burn them. It's also known as a sea warrior's barrier." Ace went silent for a moment before looking at her and saying, "Robin, you're so smart. Let's do it tomorrow afternoon." "Okay," the girl replied, smiling. Unknown to them, Olivia smiled at the scene and said quietly, "A brother for Robin. I like the sound of that, though I never expected to have another son." She then went back home. The next day, on a cliff close to the mountain and the boys' house, Olivia, Makino, and the children all stood in front of a small boat as Ace put the last of Sabo's belonging in it. His hat. He then brought a flame and set the boat on fire as he pushed into the sea. Everyone except Ace began crying. For Luffy, it was his older brother. For Makino, it was because she knew the boy from before, but didn't know his story was this heartbreaking. When she heard from Robin this morning what she was planning to do, she agreed to help her by providing a small boat that just laid around the docks with no one using it. No wonder the boy escaped to the Great Terminal if his parents only saw him as property. For Robin, it was the older brother she never got to know. From the way Ace talked about, she guessed she would have liked him very much. For Olivia, it was a tragic story of a young boy who wanted to create his own fate with his own hands, not have his life being detailed according to others' personal preferences. He just wanted to be free, only for a selfish idiot to come and kill him. She still saw a silver lining though, which was that he is free now. For Ace, it was a new beginning. He looked towards his brother and new sister and swore to protect them with his might. They all watched the boat float away in a bright fire till it finally sank into the darkness of the ocean. Romance dawn. It was a sunny day on Dawn Island as the sun rose to lay down its field of light on the lush green hills. The wind was blowing softly on the windmills, causing their blades to turn around slowly. In a certain house from the village, a young girl was getting ready for a very special day. She stood in front of her mirror doing her hair nicely as she put her bangs to the sides of her face and did her ponytail. She looked and smiled as her mom came to talk to her. "Come on, Robin. We'll be late," Olivia said, smiling at her daughter. Robin now was a 15-year young girl. She now wore the same dress Makino gave when she was younger but more refined for her growing stage. "Coming, Mom," Robin said, smiling as she came out of her room. She was beyond happy today. Today her older brother Ace will set out to become a pirate. She bought him a gift for such a special occasion. "Mom, did you bring the gift?" Robin asked her mom as she was wearing her shoes. "What? I thought you had it," Olivia said, honestly confused. "Honestly, Mom. You're 40, yet you're acting like 90. Stay like that and I'll call you Grandma instead of Mom," Robin said as she began to laugh. Olivia laughed a little as she decided to tease her daughter who went to bring the gift. When she came back, Olivia said, "Well dear, since I became so old so fast, maybe you should bring me a grandchild or two with Luffy." Robin's face became so hot at that moment she was sure you can fire an egg on it. "Mom," Robin shouted, "it's not funny anymore." Olivia only laughed at her as she said, "So did you bring the gift?" "Yeah," Robin said as she hid her red face behind it. Both ladies exited the house. Robin rolled her eyes as some boys came up to her and her mom saying, "Robin, can you go out on a date with me?" "No, go out with me." "No, me? I'm not going out with anyone," Robin said at first, then she continued, "You guys used to be frightened of my powers. Now, you only like me because of my looks." Robin finished. She had to put them down harshly, but they wouldn't budge. Ace had scared them more than once, but they didn't get the lesson. "No way, we think your powers are cool. Yeah, they're amazing." Robin was going to have a splitting headache until her mom came to the rescue and said, "Boys, leave my daughter alone." The boys then ran away. "Thanks, Mom, you're welcome, darling." Then both ladies made their way to the mountains to meet up with Ace as he set sail. The boys looked as they started muttering, "I hate this man. Yeah, I mean, why she doesn't even give us a chance? 'Cause she's in love with that rubber freak. Damn, idiot. Doesn't even notice that the hottest girl on the island is in love with him. Why can't she forget about him?" they said as each went home. On the other side of the island, Ace was currently finishing packing his stuff. He looked and frowned, saying, "They're supposed to be here." Makino then looked at him and said, "Don't worry, they're here soon." Robin must have been caught with boys flirting with her. Ace's eyebrows twitched a little as he looked back the village's way, and became to make his way towards it only for Makino to grab him by the scruff of his shirt. Now, Ace. Don't go causing any problem around. Do you want Garb to catch on to you?" Ace shivered at the idea as he heard something screaming only for him to scream back as Luffy came flying from the forest, giving him a head-on slam to the stomach, causing both boys to fall. Ace said, feeling unexplainable pain in his body. He then looked at Luffy and said, "It's good to see you too, Luffy." Luffy now was almost 14, wearing a red vest with some short jeans. What remained constant about him was his ever-present straw hat. "I wanted to say goodbye, Ace," Luffy said excitedly. "Though you're going to have a 3-year head start on me, I'll still become king of pirates." "First thing, that's a hell of a way to say goodbye," he said as he stood up, then continued saying, "As if a crybaby like you will ever become a pirate king." Like usual, Luffy fell hook, line, and sinker for it and became screaming as Ace and Makino laughed. Suddenly Robin and Olivia arrived. Ace smiled at his sister's arrival and hugged her. "So, you're off," Robin said with a smile. "Yeah, did you get my message to Dayton?" he asked her. "Of course," Robin said, remembering how Dayton started crying once she read Ace's message. "Well, I'm off then," he said as he said his goodbyes to everyone. He looked at Olivia and smiled. During the past years, she tried to treat him like a mother would teach her child. Though he would never admit it, he considered her and Dayton the closest thing he ever had to a mother. "Thanks for everything," he said. "You're welcome," Olivia said as she hugged him. She was worried for him. After he adopted Robin, Olivia decided to treat him like a mother would treat her son. She came to know quickly that he was a tough nut with a soft center. She looked at him and said with a tear in her eye, "Take good care of yourself, and don't allow shady figures to be on your crew, alright? You know I'm not a child, but I'll take that into consideration," he said. "Okay," she said. Robin looked at him and smiled, approaching him as she said, "See you later." Hugging him she added, "Big bro. You two take care of yourself," he said, then added quietly, "Little sis. Before you go, I wanted to give you something," she said, holding up a bag. Ace held up the bag and opened it. He then removed its contents, which was a cowboy hat with 2 faces on it. One smiling and one frowning. Ace took a look and put it on his head and said, "I like it." He then hopped into his boat and began to sail away. He then looked at Robin and said with a cheeky smile that made her nervous, "Don't worry, Robin. He'll get there eventually." While the women understood what he meant, Luffy didn't, so he asked Robin, "What does he mean?" Robin decided to fake ignorance and said, "I have no idea." She secretly formed an arm on Ace's boat and caused him to trip, making everyone present and watching laugh. They stood there watching him sail to make his dream come true. Luffy smiled. Now it was Ace tomorrow him. And he can't wait for his turn to come. 5 months have passed since Ace has become a pirate, but his bounty poster hasn't come out yet. It was a regular morning at Makino's party bar, with the green-haired woman was sweeping the porch. She looked in the distance and smiled seeing her 2 employees. That smile didn't last for long though. As her 2 employees came closer, both of them seemed distraught. Robin and Olivia then came inside the bar with Makino frowning following them. Robin became working at Makino's at age 12 to make her own pocket money, though that was the cover. In reality, she was making her version of the boys' pirate fund, what she called the Poneglyphs Fund. And Makino knew the reason both of them were upset. They must have had another fight. The day Robin became 12 years old, fight never seemed to end between the mother and her daughter. Usually, it was both Ace and Luffy who convinced Robin to reconcile with her mom, while Makino and Dayton convinced the other one to talk to her daughter. As the days went on, their fights would grow from 1-hour fights to a few days fights where Robin would sleep with the boys. Makino wanted to tell them on multiple occasions to knock it off, and try to find a middle ground, but chose not to interfere between them, respecting their privacy. Now, she regretted that because it became silly at this point. Yet now she can only smile and say, "Good morning guys. How are you today?" "I'm fine, Makino. Thanks for asking," Robin replied at first. "So I presume you came to see me then go see Luffy?" Makino said. The girl blushed and smiled, saying, "Yeah, I'm his teacher after all." After Ace departed from Dawn Island, the duties of teaching Luffy were passed down from Olivia to Robin, who was more than happy to get more time to spend with the rubber boy. "Well, maybe after class you can come with him to Gink about that," Robin said as she was playing with her bangs. Makino then smiled and looked at Olivia. "What about you, Olivia? You're quiet." Olivia, who was lost in her thoughts, was extremely startled and said, "What?" Both girls looked at her with wide eyes. She looked back and smiled. "I'm sorry." "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." Robin then looked at Makino and said, "I'm going to see Luffy now." She then added, "Bye, Makino." As she looked over to her mom, she forced a smile on her lips and said with an extremely forced happy sound, "Bye, Mom." Olivia looked at her with a forced smile of her own and replied, "All right dear, be safe." She then walked outside the bar. As soon as Robin walked outside the bar, Olivia slumped over with her forced smile turning into a huge frown. Makino sighed as she walked closer, saying, "You know you can't continue like that, right?" Olivia agreed with her, but this isn't a subject that you can just find halfway through it. It was either she has her way or her daughter had her way. There was no middle ground. The moment Robin walked outside the bar, she began walking happily. Nothing can wipe the smile she had on her face right now. Seeing Luffy always made her day better. She began to run, hoping to avoid the boys who she was sure were lurking at any corner. She then bumped into the mayor, who was rocking on his chair. She greeted him with a happy smile. "Good morning, Mr. Mayor." Though always at odds with her mother, over the years Robin decided to use her mother's elegant behavior and way of talking. "Good morning to you too, Robin. How are you doing today?" he said. "I'm fine, Mayor, thanks for asking," she replied. "One more thing," he said, all serious. "Did you convince that boyfriend of yours to knock that pirate nonsense out of his head?" Robin's face burned up as she said, "He isn't my boyfriend." Though every word she said was like a dagger going through her chest, it was the truth till now at least. But then she added, "In addition, I'm not going to stop him from following his dream." The mayor then slumped into his chair, complaining and mumbling, "Damn kids these days." The girl then giggled at the old man's behavior as she ran to the side of the mountain. The mayor looked at her and said quietly, "I don't get these 2 kids. I mean, everyone knows by now. Why can't they stop beating around the bush?" Robin now was running at full speed to see her best friend in the world. At first, running up the mountain wasn't an option because she'd fall to catch her breath, but after a rigorous training regime with Ace, now she can run it in at least 10 minutes. As she finally reached the bandit's hut, she sat on the tree stump that she usually sat to wait for the boys. She brought out one of the books she had with her in her bag. She opened it to read it but was stopped by a rough voice saying, "Not going to greet me? Am I not good enough?" Dayton complained as she came out of her hut. Robin smiled at her, knowing the lady's tough act was nothing but a show, and said, "Well Dayton, I greet you, but you never seem to be in the mood for one." Dayton frowned back at her, replying, "To think I thought all that time by your mom's side has taught me to be polite." The bandit lady then noticed that Robin's expression soured a little, causing her to sigh inwardly as she tried to change the subject. "So how's your work at Makino's?" she asked, to hope to see the girl smile again. "Yeah, it's going fine actually." "Good to hear that, given that you barely go there." "That's not true. I don't go about 3 days a month. And the hour days don't count. My hours are in the night." Dayton laughed at her, saying, "Whatever helps you sleep at night." Robin pouted at the lady before laughing along with her. Then Dayton's bandits popped out and said, "Good morning, Robin." Robin shivered as the bandits greeted her, but she waved back with a forced expression on her face, "Good morning, guys." Dayton noticed the mood the girl was in and screamed at her men, saying, "Get back to work, you knuckleheads, and quit it." Needless to say, the men began to run around trying to find anything to work on. A movement in the bushes caught both ladies' attention. Robin then smiled as Luffy jumped from behind the bushes smiling at her. "Robin, how are you today?" Luffy asked her. "I'm good," she said blushing. He then grabbed her hand and ran with her inside the forest. The bandits looked at them and sighed saying, "She's been with him ever since Ace left." Yeah, she did her best to keep him happy. True, Luffy was bummed out when Ace left. True to the bandits' conservation, the day Ace left Luffy fell into a bit of depression of sorts. Robin seeing this stuck by his side not leaving him. She would always play with him and train with him. She would usually sit with him and read for him one of the books she had on her. It took a lot of effort but she managed to bring him out of his depression. Dayton jumped on her feet and screamed for the heavens to hear her. "Don't you, idiots, go soft on me." The bandits again began to run terrified for their lives, busying themselves with anything they can get their hands on. Dayton looked in the forest's direction and said, "I just don't get it. Everyone noticed by now. Why can't they?" "Numbskulls," she mumbled. In the forest, the two teens made their way to the ASL training grounds. They both sat down with Robin on a log and Luffy on the ground. "So Robin, what do you have to tell me today?" "Oh, nothing," she said. Then she asked, "What about you?" "I came up with a new move," he told her excitedly. "Want to see it?" he asked her as she nodded. Then Luffy stood looking at a tree and shouted, "Gum Gum Bell." He then proceeded to stretch his neck back for a distance. He pulled his neck back at high speed, slamming the tree head on. He removed his head from the tree saying, "I told you, I'll find a way to use my head." Robin merely blinked at Luffy saying, "To be honest, I didn't expect you meant that by saying, you're going to use your head. I don't think the other guy will either," he said smiling. Robin could only giggle at his antics. She found them rather cute. "So what about you? Did you come up with any new moves?" Luffy asked, excited to see her use her powers. During her years here, Robin has taken up fighting, refusing to be that weak little girl anymore. Though her mother was seriously against it at first, with time she agreed. Even with the many times, Robin came back home with countless bruises on her body. She never gave up. With time, she began to master her powers, becoming a fighter in a league of her own. Along with Ace's self-defense training, she became a force to be reckoned with. "No, I haven't actually," she said before coming down from the log and hugging her knees. This caused Luffy to ask, "What's wrong?" "Oh, nothing," she tried to say at first, but this caused him to be more suspicious. He then pushed further, "Seriously, what's going on?" Although Luffy wasn't the smartest guy around, he had developed over the years a keen sense of when Robin had anything troubling her. She tried to play it off, but finally she cracked as she let herself lean into Luffy for a hug, who was more than willing to return it. "Mother and I had a fight again." "About the Pono thingies," he asked her. He got used to it honestly. Robin would mostly come and complain to him whenever she fought with her mom. "Yeah, I asked her to help me learn some more, but she flipped out and began telling me how I could get hurt," or she stopped for a little, frowning. But Luffy completed her sentence saying, "Worse, going after them." "As usual," she said at first before she added, "I'm sorry you had to hear about this for God knows how many times." "No problem, Robin," Luffy said as he hugged her tighter. "I mean, I always looked at my mom like an idol," Robin said. She then carried on, "To me, she was everything. I wanted to model myself after her. She was my everything. When I first met her after the years of separation, I couldn't believe she refuses to help me and always pushes me out." She sighed out as she leaned further more into him. "Okay, I see your problem," he said, then stopped to think, "Why don't just learn about the Pono Whatties anyway?" "Well, in reality, I am," Robin said, biting her lip. "But I thought your mom said no," Luffy asked, very confused. "I kinda took one of her archaeology journals and was reading it," she said. "You stole it," he said at first, only to immediately regret it as he saw her guilt-ridden face. Truly unlike Robin, Luffy wasn't an expert in saying soothing words. Ace would always punch him on the head, telling him to think twice before he speaks. Robin then let the tears she was holding fall down her face, saying, "I don't know anymore." She then added, "But who cares anyway? It's not like I'll find the Void Century." Luffy was shocked by that. As long as he remembered every time Robin and Olivia fought about the poneglyphs, Robin would be more persistent about finding it. "What? Why?" he asked, confused. He then asked a little more clearly, "Why would you give on your dream?" "It's not like that, Luffy. But the Void Century is something people have been trying to find for years. Not only that, but the world government is killing anyone who even thinks about it. You've seen what they almost did to Ohara. That's not even counting the people interested in it for their sick ways," she explained. Luffy sat there in silence, thinking about something as Robin asked him, "Luffy, why do you want to become Pirate King?" "Because I simply want to." "Excuse me," Robin said, all confused. "I want to. But why? I mean, going after it is riskier than going after the Void Century," she said before adding, "I mean, there's also other pirates who are searching for years the One Piece and couldn't find it. Never mind the Marines, Sea Kings, crazy weather on the Grand Line, and top of all of that, your Grabs." Luffy shivered at the mention of Garp but said, "That's what makes it worth." I mean, I'll fight for my dream, and if I can make it, I can. And if I don't, I'll say at least I tried. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that's it's final, Luffy declared proudly. I'm going to be Pirate King. I see, Robin said smiling. Luffy had so much spirit. It was always refreshing to be around him. I wish I can be as brave as you. What are you talking about, Robin? You're brave, Luffy said as this thing was a fact. What? Robin asked looking back at him as she came out of their hug. I mean, you let people call you names and never allow it to bother you. You helped me save your island. You never backed down when Ace was mean to you. You trained hard with me and Ace. You keep studying about the Pono thingies without your mother's approval. Robin, you're the most awesome girl ever. Luffy listed all of the things she had done. Robin felt a smile creep on her face as she said shyly with a blush, thanks. Luffy said, no problem. He looked at Robin and couldn't help but feel funny as he looked at her. It wasn't just this time. Ever since he met her he was always feeling funny in his chest. Now he was gathering all his courage to ask her about it, so he said stuttering, Robin, can I ask why you something? Robin raised an eyebrow at why Luffy was stuttering of all things. What's wrong, Luffy? You see, Robin, Luffy began. There's something I meant to ask you. Okay, go ahead. You see, every time I see you I don't know, I feel something weird. Robin felt her heart skip a beat. It's not a bad feeling. I know it's a good one, but sometimes I feel it's not enough, he continued. Robin felt her breath freeze in her mouth as he continued speaking. This couldn't be happening, could it? So I asked you. Could you tell me what I was feeling? Luffy finished his question. Robin felt her world become extremely bright for a moment. She didn't know what to do, but she decided to tell him about her feelings. So she said, I know what you mean, Luffy. Great, so can you tell me? He said. Robin then used her willpower to overcome her shyness to put her face closer to Luffy's. She then began talking. Luffy, for as long as I remember I used to feel funny every time I stood around. You were the first person to accept in his life, other than scholars, without judging me. You stood by my side throughout the years that we have known each other. What I am trying to tell you is that you're the most important person in my life, maybe even greater than my mom. She stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath as she said, Luffy, I love you. Luffy looked at her confused as he said, so it's a mystery feeling. Robin felt horrible at this moment. Though she expected it, it still felt bad. But Luffy's brain began to work triple time. He thought about everything as he put the pieces together, causing him to smile and hold Robin's hands. He said, but you know something, Robin. The girl looked at him confused and trying to hide her feelings of sadness. I love you too. This made Robin's heart go wild. He just said it, after so many years of waiting, he said. She then proceeded to throw herself onto him as if she was hanging to life itself, saying, Luffy, you can't imagine how happy I am right now. I thought you would never know. Oh come on, Robin. I'm stupid but not that stupid, he said laughing. No, you aren't. You're perfect the way you are, she said as they both began laughing. The mood then changed as they both came closer to each other's faces and shared their first kiss. Robin felt happiness course through her until Luffy suddenly pulled away, breaking her heart. We can't do this, he said. What? Why not? She asked. This was something she wanted for so long, only for it to be taken from her in such a cruel fashion. It felt like someone ripped her heart out and stomped on it. We're part of the ASL, pirates. It'll be like kissing my sister. The boy panicked. Robin giggled as he saw him pull out his tongue to wring it like a towel. Luffy, we're not brother and sister, she said, causing him to stop, saying, we're not. We're not. You see, Ace and I shared sake when I was 8. She remembered that day, smiling, she continued, but since he knew how I felt about you, he left you out. Luffy couldn't be more thankful for being left out of something for once as he said, good thing, that would have been gross. I agree. The mood then returned to what it was a moment ago, as both teens were involved in a kiss. After 7 years of being best friends, Luffy and Robin were now officially a couple. It's been at least 2 hours since the couple was formed. Now both Robin and Luffy were laying on the ground watching the clouds. Luffy then sat up, kissing Robin on the forehead, making her smile. He then asked her, Robin, would you come with me? The girl, confused, said, come with you where? When I go to become Pirate King. I want you to go with me. This way I can help you find the poneglyphs, he said, and she noted he used the word for once right. Furthermore, I don't want you to be alone when I go, he added. Robin was shocked. She never thought about that. True, when Luffy goes, she'll be all alone. She would die before she goes back to those days, so she replied happily, yes, I will come with you. Then both teens stood up as Luffy was escorting Robin to the mountain path so she can go home. Robin made her way home with a huge smile on her face. She still couldn't believe it. Luffy is her boyfriend now. Truly, her wait wasn't in vain. Nothing can ruin her mood now, even her mom. As she entered the house, she put her things down only to be met by her mother, who held a look of anger and disappointment. Olivia was really angry now. She had found one of her journals under Robin's pillow this morning while she was cleaning her room. She reached under her coat and pulled it out, saying, what was this doing under your pillow, young lady? Everything froze in Robin's mind. She gulped, knowing this won't be pretty, and with that, the arguing began. Makino has just finished shutting her bar. She was home to talk to the woman a little. When the house came in view, she saw Robin running out crying all the way. She frowned and said, "Must have been another fight. Another thing to talk," she thought. However, a ruckus around some garbage bin caught her attention. As she came closer to inspect, her blood ran cold from what she heard. Olivia sat at her dining table thinking about the fight that she had just now with her daughter. She had a cup of hot cocoa she made to try and ease her nerves. She looked at a picture of herself and her daughter from the 3rd month they arrived at Dawn Island. She was only 8 back then, and was extremely shy. Honestly, their relationship was much better back then. "Worst day of my life," she said as tears flew through her eyes. Luffy was sitting in his treehouse. His day was extremely wonderful. He remembered when his time with Robin today. A huge smile formed on his face that he couldn't remove even if he wanted to. He liked the kiss they had very much. It was like the moment when he became brothers with Ace and Sabo, but better 100 times. "Luffy," a sweet voice from below called him, "can you bring me up?" Luffy smiled hearing Robin's voice, but he noticed it was a little bit off. He became worried and threw his arm down to her. Once he felt a tug on his arm, he yanked up to see the girl. Once she was up, she sat there in silence, causing him to worry more. "What's wrong, Robin?" he asked her, skipping the pleasantries. "What? There's nothing wrong," she initially said. "Seriously, Robin, what's wrong?" Luffy asked, all serious. Then Robin broke down crying as she lunged at Luffy, hugging him, which he gave her back slowly. "Luffy, mother, and I had our worst fight ever." That was all she can say. At the Nico residence, Olivia began to remember her fight with Robin. It was extremely horrible. She found her old journal under her daughter's pillow. She asked her what she was doing with it. "I told her I was doing nothing with." She stopped a little as Luffy was rubbing her back to help and soothe her. She then asked me to tell her the truth. She was researching the poneglyphs. She was going against her wishes. Why can't she forget them and get another hobby like any normal girl her age? She hated the thought that her daughter was still going after them. She hated that the idea that those poneglyphs are still managing to haunt her, and now through her daughter no less. Her daughter isn't listening to her no matter what she said. She told her how dangerous they are, but she won't listen to her. "I know that they are extremely dangerous." Robin in loud voice, though Luffy didn't flinch. He was expecting that. She grew silent for a moment. She then exploded in anger, causing Luffy to tighten his hug and rub his head against her. "But this my dream, it's my obsession, it's everything I ever dreamt about since I held a book." Olivia sighed. Her daughter still doesn't get it. The pain that came with this obsession. She had seen the amount of agony that came with it. She still has horrific nightmares about her friends' deaths. It was still fresh. The wounds still hurt. She then told her daughter that she will forget about the Void Century. Forget about any other type of civilization. Forget about archaeology in general. Forget about even going to sail. She had put her leg on the table, refusing to back down. This was her final say in the matter, but her daughter wasn't going to back down either. "When she told me that I can't do archaeology anymore, I refused," she said with anger. "I said no, I want to keep studying archaeology. If this part of her life was over, then it wasn't over for me." Luffy sighed inwardly. He knew this was going to end badly. Olivia felt her mind go numb for a moment. She remembered telling her daughter that even if she helped her learn, even if she allowed to go, no one with a sane mind would risk their lives for a bunch of stupid rocks with some fancy old words scribbled on them. The betrayed look on her daughter's face will haunt her forever after that night. Robin now slunk further into Luffy's embrace as she sniffed a little and said, "That's when I told that I'm going to sea with you, that you'll help me reach my dream." She then added, "That's when she said that." Olivia remembered how she yelled at her daughter with as much authority as she can that she's not going to sea, not going to ever mention the sea ever again, and most importantly never see the rubber boy ever again. "But I refused," Robin said with much heat, as if she was still arguing with her mom. "I told her that I was a grown woman. I'm an adult that can do whatever I want." Robin moved her face a little, revealing the right side of her face, shocking Luffy. Olivia knew what she did was wrong, but she was so angry that her daughter was defying her will. She acted without thinking. She slapped her daughter. And she was sure if any was around the house he could have heard it. But what her daughter said next truly hurt her. "When she slapped me, I felt so betrayed by her," Robin said between her sobs. Then she added, "It reminded me of the horrible time I had with my uncle's wife." So I said at that moment. Olivia was shocked that her daughter compared her to that horrible woman Roji. She felt extremely hurt that her daughter, after everything she gave her, compared her to that horrible woman. She was sure that her reply was 20 times harsher when she told Robin. "She told me that I'm the worst daughter that any mother can wish for," Robin said, feeling extremely hurt her mother told her that because she just following her dream. "It's okay, Robin. Just calm down," Luffy said. He was trying to calm Robin down. He felt her pain go off her in waves. He could tell this was devastating for her. "I don't know what to do, Luffy," Robin said as she cried some more. Luffy then hugged her as she cried. He looked into the distance as if he was talking to a force he can only see. He then grabbed Robin by her shoulders and looked her directly in her eyes and said, "Robin, what do you want to do?" "What? I don't get you," Robin said, extremely confused. Also, she was shocked by Luffy's sudden seriousness. He never acted like that. "I mean, your mom wants to stay here and I want you to go with me on my trip." She stopped for a bit as he said, "But I want to hear it from you. What do you want to do?" Robin stopped for a moment to think about it. Luffy was the best at doing spontaneous decisions, but she wasn't. She thought about it for a couple of minutes as she finally came to a decision. "I know what I want to do, Luffy," she said as she wiped her tears away. Luffy smiled at her cause she finally found her way. "I'm going to find the Void Century." "Alright, Robin will find it together," Luffy said as he held her hands, giving them a gentle kiss. "But mother won't let me go with so," as Robin continued speaking. Luffy couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu come over him. Olivia sat watching the window. Her fight with her daughter was the worst by far. She was sure that if their relationship wasn't ruined forever, then it was seriously harmed. What she couldn't get was why her daughter wouldn't understand what she was doing for her. She was keeping her safe. Sure, she would be sad at first, but then when she grows up, gets married, and have children of her own, she'll thank her. She now understood why Garp was hell-bent on making the boys Marines. With them being Marines, they won't be persecuted and followed by the world government like Ace, whose father was the Pirate King, and Luffy, who she was sure his father was some kind of big-name criminal in the world government's books. But then she remembered, Garp never actually stood between the boys and their dreams. Every time he put them in a life-or-death situation, he never actually forced them to become Marines. If he wanted to truly force them, he would have lived up to his threat to take them to Marineford the first she met him. Was she seriously going to be worse than Garp? Our situation was different, was it? She sighed. She didn't know what was right from wrong anymore. She remembered something once Clover told her, that every person will have to crave their path in life. Everyone will have to make their way, and make their own decisions. At that moment, she knew what she had to do to fix everything, but that didn't mean she liked it. As she stood up to go to the bathroom to wash her face after the excessive crying she had, she heard a knock on the door. She smiled. Could this be her daughter coming back to talk to her to make things right? She went over to the door and opened it. The moment she opened it, every fiber in her being told her that she just did the biggest mistake of her life. Makino was currently running up the mountain. She wanted to reach the bandits' hut, or Luffy's treehouse, to tell them what she heard. She just heard men conspiring to kidnap Olivia for some boss of theirs. She remembered their faces from last year when they came up to Olivia saying that they work for an organization named Baroque Works. They said that their boss was interested in her and wanted her aid. When she refused, they became extremely violent. They were quickly subdued by Ace, Luffy, and an extremely angry Robin. She thought that was the last of them, but now they came back. Makino finally reached the hut. Dayton saw and asked, "What the hell happened to you?" "I need to see Robin and Luffy quickly," Makino said, trying to catch her. "Well, I saw her a moment ago running to that wreck Luffy calls home," Dayton said. Makino sighed as she began running again. Back at the treehouse, both Robin and Luffy decided to begin their journey now. Luffy, albeit reluctant since he didn't want to break his promise to his brother, but pushed down for Robin. He couldn't help but feel like this happened before. He just shrugged. "Ready, Luffy?" Robin said, a little worried herself. "Yeah, I am," he said in the same tone Robin used. Suddenly they heard a movement causing them to take fighting positions. Makino then popped out saying, "Luffy, Robin, thank goodness I found you." She then noticed their backpacks and said, "Were you trying to run away?" "Ah," both teens said. She shook her head saying, "Never mind that," she said, throwing a glare at Luffy, who felt very small all of a sudden. "Your mom Robin is being kidnapped." Robin now felt very worried. "What?" she said with fear in her voice. Robin then began to run, but Luffy said, "Stop, we won't reach her in time." Robin looked back saying, "I can't stand here and do nothing. My mother is being kidnapped." Luffy then put his fist into his palm and said, "I have an idea, but it's a little dangerous." "I don't care. Do it now." "Alright, hug me then. It's going to be a bumpy ride." Robin hugged him and said a prayer as they prepared for set off. Olivia was tied up and was being carried outside her home by some thugs who came to take her to meet their boss, saying it'll be an opportunity of a lifetime and she should feel honored that he chose her, not anyone else. Honestly, she didn't feel any of that. She only felt the same feelings she had on Ohara. Was going to be the end? Was going to be kidnapped with her daughter still mad at her? No, she tried to wiggle her way out, but they held her tight. Plus, there were 10 of them and one of her. She was in a trouble, and she needed quite the miracle to escape. As they exited the house, they heard what seemed like screaming. They looked at the sky only for them to see something feeling at them, and someone screaming, "Leave my mother alone." The guy holding her had his face met her daughter's foot as she kicked him. The two on their side were then taken out by Luffy, who stretched his arms taking them out when he landed. The remaining 7 were confused, but one of them said, "Don't worry guys. He the big one ain't here. This is going to be Aya." He was knocked by Luffy, who punched him. Anyone else? The boy said only for the 6 remaining thugs to attack. Robin came into the fight giving one man a side house kick to the side of his stomach before punching him in the face. The last thing he thought before blacking out. The girl's appearance was deceptive. 4 thugs remained now. The 6th fell day when Luffy kicked him in the stomach followed by grabbing him and performing his latest move he showed Robin earlier. The last 3 were taken out by Robin when she grew arms on them and twisted their spines. Truly, during the years Robin's method of using her devil fruit was a little violent, but these were the only moves she can come up with. As Olivia watched her daughter and Luffy take out all of the thugs, she felt lucky they came on time. Luffy then sprung to the woman to undo the ropes that held her. As soon as she was free, she looked at Robin who turned her face away still mad at her. Olivia then noticed the backpack and said, "Were you trying to run away?" Robin said, "Yes, I was, and I am." Luffy, who was staying on the side with Makino, who just arrived and fell beside him from exhaustion from running so much, was startled when Robin added, "And Luffy too." Olivia's eyes went wide. "What? That's ridiculous, Robin. You have no map, no supplies, not even a compass, only the clothes on your back. You think you can make it? Don't worry about me, mother. We'll find a way to make it work, right Luffy?" she asked him, receiving no answer. She looked around seeing Makino grabbing Luffy's ear with the boy yelling in pain as she scolded him for stupid ideas. She sighed, feeling bad for him. "You're not going anywhere, Robin," Olivia demanded. "Mother, you're suffocating me." The girl screamed from irritation. "I know you're trying to protect me, but I can't take any more. You're blocking everything. I don't want to grow old here and wither and die as you want. I want to see the world and fulfill my dreams." Robin began to cry, feeling so frustrated. "I can't go to sea. I can't read. I can't see Luffy." She stopped and screamed, "Then what can I do? What do you want from me?" Olivia sighed. "Listen, Robin, I know I said and did some horrible things, but you need to understand I'm your mom. Every time you spoke about finding the Void Century I would have nightmares of you being executed. But now I made my decision." Olivia stopped using her willpower not to cry. "If that's what you want, I won't stop you anymore, because what I want from you is to be happy," she said with a smile and added, "Robin, I know you grew up and need to find your path, and if this is it, I will support your cause. To me you being happy is everything I want. So please, when you go, don't hate me," she finished crying. "Mother, Mama, I can never hate you," Robin said as she tackled her mom crying with her. Makino shed some tears, still holding Luffy's ear, who was also crying. Robin then looked at Luffy and said, "Guess everything worked out for the best." Luffy, still from his uncomfortable position, said, "I think so." Robin then did something that shocked both ladies. She grabbed Luffy's head and kissed him. Makino then started to stutter, saying, "You and him, but that means..." She stopped a little as her brain processed what she saw and squealed at the top of her lungs, saying, "Yes." It only took a few minutes for the entire village to gather around with all the men holding their weapons, which was nothing other than pitchforks. "What happened?" they all asked. "Nothing," Makino said. "Luffy and Robin are finally together." It only took a couple of seconds for people to groan and people to celebrate, then the groaning began to give the celebrating money. Robin interjected, "Wait, you all knew I loved him and he loved me and we're betting on when we get together?" One guy said, "Yeah, it became an annual thing since you came to the island. Every year people would bet that you would get together and would make a betting pool. Your brother Ace would usually join too." Ace, after adopting Robin, began to go down to the village and meet everyone. Although Garp was against it, Olivia told him he owed to Ace to make possible, so he allowed Ace to go down to the village 3 days a week. Robin frowned as she saw the people become dispersed. The only people who remained were the island's boys, who all screamed, "No, why him and not us?" As the boys all sulked away to their homes, Robin asked, "Where are the thugs we just beat up?" They all looked around and saw no one, prompting Olivia to say, "They must have escaped during the commotion." Everyone then shrugged and they went inside Olivia's home to talk about this night. On a boat sailing away from Dawn Island, multiple men were thrown on the ground groaning, with one talking on a transponder snail, "Sorry boss, but we couldn't get her." The voice on the other line took a deep breath and said with a chilling voice, "Is there a reason that I shouldn't kill you all?" "Well, we did find out something that would help us out eventually," the man said, stuttering with fear. "I'm listening, but you better make it worth my time," the voice on the other line said. The poor thug then began explaining what he saw, causing his boss to laughing, saying that he can wait 3 years and that his plans are still on schedule. As time went on, Robin and her mom began to study together with the notes Olivia took on her journey. She was beyond happy that she was doing her most favorite thing along with her dear mom. She also made time for her training, whether be it self-defense or devil fruit. Speaking of her devil fruit, she stuck to training on it till she became a fighter in a league of her own. Luffy, on the other hand, continued training his devil fruit, making new crazy moves, taking down every animal he came across, to the point animals decided to just avoid him. Finally, it was Luffy's 17th birthday. It was their time to set off. Robin walked up to the bandit's hut and sat on her stump smiling, as she thought this would be the last time she was going to see it for a long time. She then saw Luffy coming out of the bushes. They hugged each other and shared a kiss as he said, "Ready." "Ready," she replied. But before they began their journey, they made it to the bandit hut. They were shocked to see the bandits all crying as they said, "We're going to miss you guys." The couple replied with a smile, as too. They then looked at Dayton, who was sitting in the corner. Luffy began talking. "Dayton, what do you want?" She replied loudly. "I still hate mountain bandits," he said. "Who the heck cares?" she screamed at him. "But I like you," he said. Dayton then pulled out a napkin and cried into it saying, "I don't care. Say whatever you want." Robin then spoke. "Miss Dayton." Dayton then put her tough lady act again saying, "What do you want, girlie?" Robin smiled at the lady's tough acting, knowing how of a sweetheart she truly was. "Thanks for taking care of Luffy and Ace." "Yeah, whatever, and if it's not any problem can I call you Aunt Dayton?" the girl asked sweetly. The bandit lady then pulled the napkin again and cried, "Call me whatever you want, I don't care." Both teens smiled as they made their way to the village. On the docks, the preparation for the teens' voyage was ready. Food was delivered, a compass provided by Olivia was given to Robin, and most importantly a boat was given to them by a local fisherman. Both teens now stood on the edge. Makino made her toward Luffy and said, "Take care, Luffy." "I will, Makino," he said smiling. She looked at Robin and smiled saying, "You too, Robin, take care." The girl merely nodded. Olivia then stood in front of her daughter and hugged her saying, "Take care, Robin. And don't do something too reckless, okay?" The girl smiled and said, "Mama, you don't need to worry about me." "Sweetie, I'm your mom. I'm supposed to worry," she said, giving her daughter a small kiss on the forehead. She then looked at Luffy and said, "Please take care of my daughter, and take care of yourself too." He probably gave her a thumbs up. Both teens then got on the small tugboat and heard the mayor saying, "If you ever go out, you'll never be allowed back," only for him to be punched slightly on the shoulder by Makino telling him to quiet. He only grumbled at that. Before they began their journey, Luffy pulled something from behind him and said to Robin, "A gift from the beginning of our voyage." Robin looked at him and blushed and felt bad that she didn't bring him anything, so she said, "Luffy, thank you, but I didn't bring you anything." "Robin," the boy said smiling, "you being with me is the only gift I need," he declared, making her blush even harder, and mutter shyly, "Thank you." She then proceeded to open the gift he gave her. It was a beautiful purple cowboy hat. She smiled that he remembered that one time she told him that she liked cowboy hats cause they remind her of Saul. "So, do you like it?" the boy asked nervously. "I love it," she replied. Both teens then sailed in their small boat, but suddenly the water exploded, revealing a menacing figure. It was the serpent of the coast. He was a brown sea king with a green and blue dorsal fin. He snarled at the teens, though Luffy wasn't panicked at all. Robin was, if she remembered correctly, this was the monster who took Shanks' arm off. Olivia was about to jump into the water to save her daughter, only to be held by Makino, who shook her head. She told her to wait and see what's going to happen, to cause the lady to feel confused as she looked at the children facing the enormous monster. Luffy said, "It's you. I was hoping to see you again." The monster roared and dove in for his breakfast meal. Luffy then stretched his arm so far it reached the bay. He then screamed, "Gum Gum Pistol." The rubber arm retracted at high speeds toward the Sea King. The monster was so close to them, he can practically eat them. Then it happened. Luffy's fist met the monster's jaw. The sound of teeth breaking was audible for miles. The beast was then blasted out of the water. This acted as fireworks for the couple's departure. Olivia smiled as this was all she needed to see to know her daughter was safe. Robin looked at Luffy and said, "I'm going to do it, Luffy." Luffy looked back at her confused as she explained further, "I'm going to find the Void Century." Luffy smiled at his lover's enthusiasm and declared loudly, stretching his arms, "And I'm going to become Pirate King. The 1,000-mile journey starts with a step." Both teens were excited. It was the beginning of the journey of a lifetime. It was the trip to fulfill their dreams. They were going to face all kinds of dangers, fights, and villains along the way. So it came as a surprise to them when they found themselves in their current predicament. "Well, that's quite troubling, I know. That's some big whirlpool." The pirate couple was now on their boat as it was heading into a huge whirlpool. They didn't know how they ended there, but it was not the time for thinking, it was the time for searching for a way out. If you asked Luffy, he would have said that he would eat the food in the barrel they had and hop in it wishing for the best, but he wasn't alone. He needed something effective for him and Robin. As they looked around for something to save them from their current situation, Robin spotted something in the distance. It looked like a ship. She poked Luffy's shoulder and said, "Do you think you can take us there?" Luffy smiled at her. He then proceeded to stretch his arm till it caught the side of the ship. He looked at Robin and said, "Guess, I can. Now hang on," he ordered her. The girl then hugged him as he launched them from the small boat which was being swiftly drifting toward the whirlpool. Both teams cheered as they soared through the air. When they reached the boat, Luffy threw Robin in the air. Once he got a good footing on the ship, he caught her. Robin giggled and said, "Thanks, Luffy." The boy blushed and said, "It's nothing." They looked around for a little before Robin told Luffy, "Let's go inside before anyone notices us." The boy nodded as they left the deck of the ship and entered its hall. As they left, two sailors came. One was thin while the other was fat. The thin one said, "Yep, that's some good food we ate." The fat man said, "Yeah, our cook is the best there is." They looked at the sea and saw the couple's previous ride as it was being sucked into the whirlpool. The thin one then went and smacked the outlook that was leaning back on his chair and snoring away. The smacked man screamed in pain as he was rudely awakened from his sleep. "Ouch, what was that for?" "Why are you sleeping?" "Yeah, there's a boat being sucked down there." The outlook looked over the side of the ship and said, "I don't see anything." The man then squinted his eyes as he looked into the distance. He could barely make out the figure of a ship coming closer. As the teens entered the hall, they noticed that there was a party going in there, which made Robin say, "It would appear that this is a noble's ship." Luffy frowned at the mention of the word nobles. Robin nudged him and said, "Luffy, I know that you hate them, but don't do anything that might cause a specific someone to catch on to us." Luffy nodded his head as he shivered, thinking about his grandpa. "Okay," he said, but he then heard his stomach rumbling. The boy smiled sheepishly as he said, "Let's go find some food." He then grabbed the dark-haired girl's hand and went to find food with her, smiling at his goofy antics. On the other side of the hall, a young girl with orange hair wearing a tan-colored dress was standing looking into the distance. She was deep in thought as one of the nobles came up to her and said, "Do you want to dance?" She was startled at first but smiled as he put out his arm for her to grab. She simply nodded and said, "Sure." She hoped that dancing with him would help ease her mind. Back with the pirate duo, Luffy was now looking at the food that is in the buffet. He frowned. The food tasted well as he practically inhaled it, but there was one problem. It was too damn small to satisfy him. "What the hell is wrong with this food?" he complained, then he added, "And why is it so small?" The girl beside him giggled and said, "Luffy, this is an appetizer. They're supposed to be small." She explained to her lover, who then saw something that grabbed his interest. He then moved to a small bowl with some weird blue gooey stuff in it. He then grabbed the spoon in it. He took a spoonful and licked it. His face scrunched at the taste and said, This tastes awful. What is it?" Robin looked at it. "This is caviar, Luffy." The boy raised his eyebrow, thinking he heard this word before. "It means that this is pickled fish eggs." The effect was almost immediate as Luffy dropped the spoon like it was made of fire, and his face turned green. He then said, "Who would eat such a thing?" "You don't know," Robin said. "Now, where's the meat?" he said, looking around. During that small interaction between him and Robin, all the couples in the room were staring with disgust at the pirate duo. Luffy then saw that everyone was dancing, and he looked at Robin and blushed. The girl said, "Is there anything, Luffy?" The boy then gathered his courage and said, "Do you want to dance?" Robin smiled at him and said, "Of course." Luffy then took Robin's hand and led her to the dancing floor. Once they reached it, he put his hand around her waist while she put her hand over his shoulder. They then began to dance awkwardly. Robin smiled at Luffy's attempt at dancing and said, "Luffy, do you want me to take the lead? I know that you aren't that good with dancing." Luffy nodded as he breathed a sigh of relief, letting Robin take the lead. Over the other side of the room, the captain of this ship was currently chatting with some of the guests. One of them was a woman who said, "I heard that there was a big whirlpool. I hope it doesn't destroy the ship." The captain laughed and said, "My dear, I assure you that this ship is state-of-the-art. A small whirlpool like that won't even scratch it." In the distance away from the noble's ship, a ship was making its way toward it. The ship had a distinct feature about it. It was entirely colored pink with hearts decorating its sides. It also had a Jolly Roger, which was a sideways skull that had a heart on it with two crossbones behind it. "Kobe," a hoarse voice echoed throughout the ship. The one who was called by the voice ran as quick as a lighting blot reaching its owner. He was a small child with pink hair. He wore an outfit that resembled a standard navy dress. In addition, he also wore round circular glasses. He stood at attention and said, "I am H here, Miss Alvida." "Do you know what time it is, Kobe?" the woman now named Alvida asked. "No, ma'am," he said, hoping to avoid a beating. The lady growled at him and said, "It's time for some fun," the lady told him as she chuckled darkly. She then stood up and held up a huge black mace. But the surprising thing was her. She was as huge as a house, and wide as a tree stump. She wore heavy lipstick. In addition to that, she also had a cowboy hat on her head. She then looked at Kobe, who shivered, and asked him, "Kobe, who the most beautiful woman on all the seas?" The boy looked at her, and like the countless times before, he fought the urge to throw up and said, "Well, of course you, Ma'am Alvida." He told her as he hung his head low like a puppy doing anything to avoid the beatdown of the century. "Of course I am," she said as she began laughing. She looked at her men and said, "And since I'm the most beautiful woman there is, I deserve all the fanciest jewelry the world can offer," she said as every one of her men nodded. She looked around and saw Kobe standing in the corner and called him, "Kobe." "Yes, Ma'am Alvida?" the boy asked. "Are you ready to go on a raid with us and help us?" Unlike every time where run off and hide hoping I won't find you?" she asked with a sadistic smile on her face. "Why yes," the boy said, answered, quivering like a leaf caught in the wind. "Good, good, I'm counting on you, Kobe," the woman said with an extremely fake grin that Kobe knew too well was telling him to do what she said or else he was going to get it later on. And he surely wasn't going to annoy Iron Mace Alvida, the strongest pirate he ever met, and make her beat him into a bloody pulp. The woman then looked at her Outlook and Sap. "Did you find anything?" The Outlook looked at her with a big smile. "Yeah, I can see a ship over there in the distance." He took a closer look, then added, "It seems we hit the jackpot, boss." "What do you mean?" she asked him. "I mean this is a noble ship." That's all he needed to say to make her in a good mood. "Great, that means today's raid will be quite bountiful," she said in glee. One of her men came up and said, "Boss, what's taking so long? Are we going to raid it or not?" he asked her. "Of course we are. Ready the cannons. Grab the grappling hooks. Get the bags. We have a ship to raid." She began barking out orders as her men ran to do what they were just told. Only one was walking slowly, which was Kobe. He wasn't exactly excited about being in a raid, to begin with. Back in the noble's ship, the couple was having the life of their time dancing together. They both had to admit that this was quite a romantic beginning for an adventure of a lifetime. "This is quite romantic, isn't Luffy?" Robin asked him with a smile on her face. "Yeah, it's really nice," he said, but he frowned suddenly. "What's wrong, Luffy?" Robin asked him, concerned for him. "It's just I remembered our first date," the boy said with a sad look, remembering how horribly their first date went down. Robin giggled at him and said, "Luffy, you know that I loved our first date. I think it went down beautifully." Luffy simply smiled at her. As they continued their dance in the hall, they accidentally bumped into the girl from earlier and the noble with who she was dancing. While the girl didn't seem to be bothered, the man she was dancing with was extremely irritated. Luffy looked at him and said, "I'm sorry, didn't see you there." The man growled at him and said, "What are you, blind? How didn't you see me there?" The man yelled at him as he attracted the people's attention, while the girl just waved her hand at him before the man began blowing his top off. Robin looked at the noble with a dark look in her eyes and said, "He apologized. What do you want him to do? Bow down and beg you?" The look that she gave the noble man made him shrink down in fear, as his dance partner was seriously confused about the weird couple. The noble then noticed something interesting about the two standing right before. Their clothes were certainly out of place. The boy was wearing a red vest with short jeans, on his head a straw hat rested, while the girl wore a purple dress with a cowboy hat. He then gathered his courage as he asked the couple, "You sure don't look like nobles. Are you by any way stowaways?" "Yes, we are," Luffy was about to say until Robin put her hand on his mouth and said, "Well, you see," she began to explain as the nobleman fumed due to the disrespect he was receiving. On Alvida's ship, the lady yelled at her men, "Aim the cannons." The men then turned the cannons toward the ship. Set. They began to light the matches. Fire. The men burned the fuses, throwing several cannonballs at the ship. The outlook of the noble's ship screamed at the top of his lungs as the cannonballs fell from everywhere. Pirate attack. "Go over there, boys," Alvida screamed. The men then threw their grappling hooks over to the noble's ship. Once the hooks have connected with the ship, they then slide over there. Everyone did that except one person. It was Kobe. Alvida, seeing her chore boy standing over the edge and jumping to the ship, came over to him and said, "What's the take up, Kobe? Go over there." The said boy shivered as he looked at her. "I just can't, ma'am." Alvida blinked for a moment. She then snarled at Kobe as she said, "Looks like I'm imagining stuff. For a moment there I thought you talked back to me," the woman said as she swung her mace. "What?" The boy panicked, afraid he will meet the end of her mace, so he began to stutter. "IW would never talk back to you." Growing sick of his attitude, Alvida screamed, "Then go over there," she said as she kicked him, throwing far enough to land on the ship's deck. The boy groaned from his spot. He then suddenly saw a dark shadow appear above him. He looked and saw Alvida about to stump him. He ran for it as she landed where he was once rolling in pain. She smiled and said, "Come on, boys. We have work to do." She looked as her men have already captured the crew. Kobe then started running for his life, hoping to stay out of sight away from her. Inside the hall, when the cannonballs began to fall, all hell broke loose. The nobleman began to panic. The noble, who was yelling at Luffy and Robin, then cowered in fear while his dance partner held a face of pain as she said, "You're stepping on my foot." She then promptly took her foot from under him, causing him to fall over. Luffy held Robin as she was about to fall over when the cannonballs hit the ship. They then went over to a table to which they held on. Luffy then asked Robin, "What's going on?" Robin then answered him, "I presume that the ship is being attacked by pirates." Luffy then held Robin by her shoulders and said, "Robin, we have to get out somehow." Robin looked at him as if he had some plan to escape. He then continued, "We need to find our way to food storage. I'm still hungry." If any other person was there, he would have looked down at the boy, but that's why she loved him in the first place. She then said, "Let's go." The couple then made their way out of the hall. At the same time, The orange-haired girl was pulling her own act of her disappearance. She swiftly removed her dress as she was now dressed in a pirate's outfit. Deep inside the interior of the ship, Kobe was running around to find a suitable place to avoid anyone till the raid is over. He then saw the door to the pantry. He smiled. This was the perfect spot to hide away from the pirates. He ran over to it, hope-filling, till a voice stopped him. He looked around as sweat covered him. He then saw 3 of the Alvida pirates coming into the room. The moment they saw him, a huge smile made its way onto their faces. Well, if it isn't our favorite cabin boy," a lanky-looking pirate said. "Hi guys, are you here to help raid the pantry with me?" the boy asked as he was practically shivering from fear that they might harm him. "Yeah, sure," a chubby pirate laughed, then said, "We all know about your disappearance acts during our raids." The man finished looking at the boy with a sick smile. "What?" the boy said, waving his hands. He then added, "No, I'm enjoying pirate's life and all. Ha ha ha. Don't even try to lie about this, Kobe. You know there are going to be consequences for your actions." This time a pirate with a small beard said. "What do you mean there's going to be consequences?" the pink-haired boy asked while his knees were quivering. "I mean, this isn't the first time that you try to hide during a raid, and Pirate Ma'am Alvida won't be too pleased about it," the breaded pirate said. "What? Please no, don't tell her." The boy kneeled down and began to beg, hoping to avoid getting a beat down. The 3 pirates looked at him and began to laugh. From the moment he joined them, he was the target for the rest of the crew, who enjoyed bullying him to no end. They liked to see him begging and crying for forgiveness. It just made them feel powerful. The chubby pirate then made his way to Kobe and patted him on the back, saying, "Don't worry buddy, we can work something out." He stopped as he snickered, "We are reasonable people after all." The boy looked at him with a defeated look, feeling himself get stuck between a rock and a hard place. "What do you want from me?" the boy asked as he hung his head low. "Well, we don't want anything really, only that you don't tell Ma'am Alvida that we drank the booze in the pantry. That's all," the lanky-looking pirate said. The boy's eyes went wide. If Alvida knew that they drank the booze, she will have their heads for it. "What?" he screamed, only to cover his mouth and breathe a sigh of relief since no one heard him. "But what if she finds out?" he asked in a hysterical state of terror. "She won't tell her," the chubby pirate said as he went to the door of the pantry, "and if she does, he was cut off by the door of the pantry flipped wide open. Kobe and the 2 other pirates gaped as a teen with a straw hat and a comically large belly came out. He smacked his stomach and said, "Man, that hit the spot." He was then met by swords to his face, causing him to say, "Hi, what's the big idea?" The 2 pirates and Kobe wondered if this guy was some kind of an idiot, but the lanky one said, "Stop right there, you won't get away that easily." Suddenly a sweet voice came out of the pantry saying, "What's wrong, Luffy?" This was followed by the appearance of an extremely gorgeous young girl. This caused the 3 in front of her to blush. "I don't know. I came out of the room, but these guys seem angry at me," the boy explained. She looked around for a moment before noticing something stuck behind the door, so she said, "Perhaps it has something to do with the gentleman stuck behind the door." Luffy then let the door close, letting the chubby pirate fall to the ground with a thud, a silly smile on his face. The boy looked at the men before him and said, "Sorry, I didn't see him there." The pirates, who were confused at this point, said, "Who are you?" "I'm Luffy," the boy said. He then grabbed Robin and said, "This is my love, Robin." The girl chuckled and waved. The pirates now were truly confused but didn't care anymore as they attacked the couple. Kobe closed his eyes, not wanting to see the 2 become mincemeat. Above in the ballroom, Alvida had all but gathered the nobles, who were trembling from fear. The lady smiled at that. Good, they were afraid so they won't resist much. "Now folks, you know the drill. Give whatever valuables you have and nothing goes wrong. Try to play hero and heads will roll off," she declared as she brought her mace up to the air. The nobles nodded obediently as they began heading out their jewels, rings, watches, and whatever gold they had on them. Alvida looked around, and she felt something was wrong but just shrugged. Back on Alvida's ship, a certain orange-haired girl made her to it as she slid on one of the ropes connecting the 2 ships. She began looking around for something. Suddenly, a pirate came out of one of the rooms and said, "Hi, aren't you supposed to be in the raid?" He then took a better look, and discovered this was a girl. He was confused. What was a girl doing on Alvida's ship? He didn't have too much to think about as the girl suddenly took out a staff from under her skirt and knocked him out. She breathed out a sigh as she went into the room he came out from, looking for her reward. Back with Kobe, at first, he would soon hear the screams of the couple that dared to knock out one of Alvida's men, but instead, he heard what seemed like a rubber band being flung around and metal hitting wood. As he dared to open his eyes, he saw something uncommon. The couple was unharmed in any form or way, while the pirates were shaking in fear. Weaponless no less. The boy then said, "Don't do that. It could hurt, Robin." The pirates, overcame with the sheer amount of weirdness that they just encountered, they took their friend and made a run for it, screaming something about payback. The boy then complained, "I'm still hungry. There's still food in the pantry," the girl said, as the boy cheered and grabbed her hand, taking her back in. Kobe, who was stunned by this couple that appeared out of nowhere, finally said something making his presence known to the two. Wait. Both the girl and the boy looked back, amazed about how the boy went unnoticed all this time. Before any of them can open their mouth and ask who he was, he spoke. If I were you, I would escape now. The couple merely raised their eyebrows, confused at what the boy was saying. Kobe then decided to explain further. Do you even know who is coming here, right now? The couple looked at each other confused and asked him to explain as they went inside the pantry. In the ballroom, Alvida wasn't happy. Even though the bounty was quite enormous, something was missing. Or rather, someone was missing. She looked around and sensed the absence of a certain pink-haired boy. So that Kobe has run to hide again, the woman growled. Well, I teach him a lesson about running off during a raid, she said as she tightened her grip on her mace. Suddenly she heard screaming coming toward her, only to see 3 of her men enter the room, 2 holding the 3rd since he was passed out. What the hell happened to you? She yelled at them. Ma'am Alvida, you have to save us. There's some kind of a monster down there. The lanky-looking pirate screamed. Only for the breaded one to say, yeah, and he has a cute girl with him. The pirate then paled at the words he said. At the mention of the words, cute girl, Alvida's vines began to pop out on her forehead. She slowly said as she tried to breathe out her angry, cute you say. The woman then slowly lifted her mace. She looked at the 2 idiots in front of her and screamed as she finally hit a boiling point. Do not ever say that a girl is cuter than me? The 2 pirates then ran for cover, as the 3rd one woke up dazed, asking, what hap? He didn't get to finish that question as the mace of the blotted woman smacked into him. The force behind the hit was able to send him flying into the distance with his scream only thing being heard. Alvida tried to calm her nerves down, but nothing worked. That hit only helped her release some of the tension she felt, but it didn't fully satisfy her. She looked at her men, who stood in attention, and said, if any of you idiots ever dare to say that there is a girl cuter than me, you will get that but worse, got it? Her men screamed, yes, ma'am. She then looked at the deck below and said to the 2 idiots who came here, come on, take me to that monster you're speaking of, and that pretty girl too. She said, holding her mace, hoping that caving in their faces might help her feel better. Currently, in the pantry, so if I came to a conclusion, Robin started speaking. You said that your name is Kobe and that one day you went fishing. The girl said before going on, but you accidentally boarded the ship of the pirate lady Alvida instead of your fishing boat. In an attempt to keep your life, you offered your services as a cabin boy, and have been trying to escape for her ever since. The girl finished then asked as she took a bit from the apple she had, am I correct? Kobe, who was currently staring at Luffy in awe, shook his head and said, yeah, that's pretty much it. He then looked back at Luffy, who was practically inhaling the apples in front of him. Luffy then looked at him and said, why don't you try to escape or something? I mean, take a boat and leave. Luffy suggested, but when he looked at Kobe he saw the boy sweating bullets. What no, if Alvida even finds out I'm thinking about escaping, she'll have my head, the boy said in a panic. Then just fight her, stand up for yourself, Luffy said as he swallowed an apple whole. Kobe looked at him as if he was a madman. Are you nuts? He shouted. That's even worse. If Ma'am Alvida sees me talking about that, I'll be at the business end of her mace, the boy explained. Man, you're weak, useless, and a coward. I don't like you that much, Luffy said while laughing at Kobe. The boy had a stream of tears falling down his face as he said, thanks for that. He secretly thought about how the boy was seriously blunt. Luffy then felt a sharp nudge in his side only to see Robin giving him an unimpressed glare. He then lowered his head and said, sorry for saying that, Kobe. Kobe was shocked that Luffy apologized to him. No one ever did. He said quietly, no problem, Luffy. He then looked at Robin, who smiled at him. He felt her sympathy. It's been a while since someone gave him a true smile. Kobe, Robin spoke softly. The boy looked at her, sensing the tender tone she was using. I know how it feels to be bullied all the time, but whenever it happened I focused on my dream and way of life. She finished. She then asked, do you have a dream, Kobe? The couple then looked at the boy, who seemed to be going through some sort of seizure as he fidgeted in his place, but he then stopped and said, I do have one. Luffy smiled at him brightly and said, great, what is it? I always wanted, he said, fighting himself to say his dream, but he then jumped in a sudden burst of energy saying, I always wanted to be a marine to capture bad guys. Ever since I was a child I wanted that. Luffy then bluntly pointed out, but you were a child. Only to be nudged again by Robin for being excessively blunt. The boy's excitement then died as fast as it came as he said, but forget it, if I can't escape from Alvida, how will I ever become a marine? I mean, even if I escape they will never expect me. Both teens looked at each other again, having a mental conversation. Luffy then said, Kobe, do you want to hear my dream? The boy looked at Luffy and nodded. Luffy then said, I want to become the Pirate King. Kobe then paled and said, you want to become T the P Pirate King? Luffy smiled and said, yes. Kobe then had something click in his mind, and began stuttering, but that means you're both pirates. Robin then hugged Luffy and gave him a peck on the cheek as the rubber boy said, yes, we are. Kobe blushed at their public display of affection, but carried on. So you, he said pointing to Luffy, and you, pointing to Robin, are pirates? Luffy quirked an eyebrow but nodded. And you want to become Pirate King? The boy asked Luffy. Yes, Luffy said, getting annoyed from repeating himself so many times. Kobe then exploded, shocking both teens. But being the Pirate King means you're the person with the most power and wealth, he said, then carried on. You also have to go through other pirates after the One Piece, Marines, Sea Kings, and the Grand Line's weather. But you'll have to go through the Grand Line, the graveyard of pirates. That impossible, I tell you. You'll die for sure. Impossible, impos. The boy was cut off as he felt a sharp pain in his head. Ouch. He looked at Luffy, who had come out of his embrace, and whacked him on the head, as Robin said, Luffy. Why did you hit me? The pink-haired boy complained. Because it seemed like the only way to shut you up, Luffy said, and then added, look Kobe, I know that being the Pirate King is dangerous, but I have to try achieving my dream, that way I can know if I can make or not. So if I do become Pirate King, I can say I did, and if I don't, I'll say at least I tried. Kobe looked at him in awe of his words. Robin smiled and said, do you want to know my dream, Kobe? The boy nodded. So she said, did you ever hear of the Void Century? The boy then shook his head, causing her to say, the Void Century is a period in our history that happened 800 years ago. My dream is to find it and share it with the world. Like Luffy's dream, mine is also surrounded by danger, she finished. But why did? The boy couldn't help but ask. The girl thought for a moment before saying, because I simply want to. She then added, that's all I can say. And I think it's time to leave, Luffy said as he stood up with Robin following him. He then looked at Kobe and said, good luck with that horrible life of yours. Only to be scolded by Robin. Kobe then suddenly said, do you think I can be a Marine? How should I know? Luffy replied. Kobe then said, no, I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to find a ship and sail to the Closet Marines base. Then I'll beg them to make me one. And the first pirate I'll catch is that whale of a pirate. As he said those words, the roof caved in. Luffy grabbed both his girlfriend and Kobe and jumped away. From the dust a figure emerged saying, who are you going to catch, Kobe? The voice made Kobe tremble. It was none other than Alvida. She then looked around and spotted Luffy. She looked at her men and said, is that the monster you're so afraid of? For a moment there, I thought pirate hunter Zoro made an appearance. Zoro, Luffy then echoed her silently. She then looked at Robin. She laughed, so you're the pretty thing that my boys talked about. Please, I have seen better things in the garbage bin. Robin didn't even need to defend herself. She simply didn't care what the pirate lady was saying. Alvida then looked at Kobe, who was shaking in terror, and told him, the punishment for your little disappearing act will be later, she said, making Robin hate her all the more for the way she was treating Kobe. It just brought back so many bad memories of her own abuse. Alvida then flicked her hair as if she was a model and said, Kobe, tell these idiots who is the most beautiful woman in the sea. Kobe began stuttering, saying, of course, it's. He cut off by Luffy saying, that's really easy, of course it's Robin. The girl blushed and covered her face as she said, Luffy. The boy looked at her confused as he told her, come on Robin, you know I can't tell a lie. You're the most beautiful, awesome, cute girl any guy can wish for. Luffy, the girl said, but at this point, she wasn't resisting anymore. Please stop. The boy then hugged her, gently rubbing his nose against hers. The pirates all looked at each other with confusion, while Kobe blushed at the odd couple's affection. Alvida on the other hand was fuming like a kettle on the fire. Luffy then remembered something as he said, Kobe, is she that fat pirate whale you told us about? He said as he pointed to Alvida. All the pirates in the room went white, as Kobe wondered if Luffy was trying to kill them all. One of the pirates shook in his boots saying, he didn't. He just did, another trembling said. Alvida exploded in rage as she swung her mace at Kobe and the couple. Luffy then grabbed Kobe and jumped away from the mace, shocking Kobe how fast he was. He then jumped out of the pantry to the deck carrying both people with him. On the deck, both teens and Kobe were now surrounded by enemy pirates. Luffy looked at Robin, and she got the message, stepping back with Kobe as she said to Luffy, have fun, and don't go too hard on them. The boy nodded as he went into the fight. Kobe gasped and said, are you too insane? You're going to get killed. Robin didn't acknowledge his comment because she had faith in Luffy's abilities. Luffy went directly to a pirate, who was still coming up from the hole his boss made, kicking him in the face, causing him to fall back from where he came. A pirate came up to him hoping to catch him off guard, only for the punch he threw to be avoided gracefully by the boy. The boy then gave him a side house kick, throwing him off the deck into the water. A man then charged at Luffy with a sword to cut him in half. Kobe freaked out, covering his eyes. After a couple of seconds, when no scream of pain was heard, he dared to look only to see the pirate blacked out after Luffy punched him in the stomach. Another pirate jumped at the boy only for the latter to dodge it and punch him in the face. Kobe was shocked at how Luffy was extremely strong, but he knew if Alvida came up from that hole, it'll be a whole different matter. Luffy then saw a couple of pirates chasing after him, causing him to run. He looked at them and said, 4 against 1, that's not fair. One of the pirates said to him with a sick smile on his face, "Well, that's what happens when you mess with the Alvida pirates. You'll get roughed up really bad. You just had to mess with the strongest pirate around these parts, didn't you?" Luffy laughed at them as he ran by the mast, grabbing it by both hands. As he continued to run, his arms began to stretch. The pirates who were following him didn't notice at first, but once he reached the railing and turned smiling at them, they noticed the oddity of the picture. Kobe gaped, seeing Luffy's arms stretching abnormally. He looked at Robin, who giggled, knowing what her love was up to. "Gum gum," the boy began to say. The pirates between his arms noticed that he was about to let go of them what was about to happen, and they tried to run away, but it was already too late at this point. Rocket. The boy let go of the mast as he was launched like a rocket toward the pirates, who ran away for their lives. Alvida, who came out of the hole she made, had her eyes go wide as she witnessed this scene play in front of her. Her men, who tried to run, were met by Luffy slamming into them head on, causing them to groan in pain. Robin up to her man and hugged him. She also kissed him on the cheek as a reward for his fight. The boy chuckled while blushing. Kobe then saw a pirate coming from behind Robin. She went to warn her, only for the girl to duck, turn around kicking the pirate, and make him fall over. Kobe's mind failed him. Was she also impossibly strong? He looked at Luffy then and asked the most important question of the day, "What are you, Luffy?" Both teens looked confused before Luffy understood and said, "I'm a rubber man." Kobe tilted his head, not knowing how was that possible, but he got his explanation soon enough. "You ate a devil fruit, didn't you, Straw Hat?" Alvida said as she approached the trio. "Yep," Luffy confirmed her suspicions. "Huh," the pirate lady snorted. "For all honesty, I heard about devil's fruits that are capable of giving people unimaginable power, but I honestly thought it was a myth." The lady stood for a moment there, then she said, "Well, guess I was wrong, they do exist." She then looked at the couple and said, "What's the deal with you lovebirds? Went out sightseeing and got stuck here?" "Actually no, we're pirates," Luffy said excitedly. "Wait, let me comprehend this," Alvida said as she massaged her forehead. "You and she are pirates?" "Only the both of you," the pirate lady said as she pointed her mace at them. "Yeah, but it's only for now. We're planning on getting more members eventually," Robin explained. "Yeah, I think we will need about 9 or 10 more guys." "Yeah, that should do it," Luffy said as he counted on his fingers. Alvida looked at Robin and said, "Is all the good men gone? That you grew so desperate you chose this idiot to be with?" Robin only frowned at her. Alvida then laughed a little before taking a more serious tone. "Okay, as ridiculous as that plan of yours sounds, this leaves us with a problem here. If you are a pirate and you're not under my flag, then you're most definitely my enemy. Don't you agree with me, Straw Hat?" the pirate finished as she smiled menacingly. Luffy smiled at her as he readied himself for the fight. He was about to go out for the punch when he felt someone grab his arm. He looked only to see Kobe holding him. He then said, "What's wrong, Kobe? Let go of my arm," the boy complained. "No, I can't let you fight her," Kobe insisted. "Why not?" "Because she's—" The words died in Kobe's throat as he looked at Luffy's eyes, who staring at him. The look made him feel as if the boy was looking into his soul itself. He then looked at Robin, who had the same look on her face. Kobe then remembered both of their words about how they are willing to die for their dreams, so why can't he? "So go on, Kobe," Alvida brought him out of his thoughts. "Tell him what I am," she said, smiling. That smile disappeared when he looked at her. The look was that of pure rage, and she never saw that look from her docile cabin boy. Then Kobe took a deep breath and said slowly, "You're the most." "Speak up," Alvida demanded. "You're the most, what?" At this point, Kobe exploded. "You the ugliest thing that ever existed on the face of the earth. You're so ugly that children that see you have life trauma that causes them to have a therapist to recover." The boy screamed at this point, feeling free for once. Robin and Luffy on the other hand were laughing so hard that the boy was bent over while Robin put a hand over her mouth. "What did you say?" Alvida sneered at the boy. The boy then continued his screaming. "You heard, you damn ugly walrus. Or do you have so much fat that your ears are stuffed with them that you can't hear me anymore?" At this point, Luffy was rolling on the ground while Robin was holding her stomach. Alvida tried to control herself, but she began screaming, "Are you insane?" The boy then told her, "Maybe I am, but I'm done being your errand boy. I'll go to the first Marine base and enroll in IT. Once first become a Marine, I'll search to the ends of the earth to find you. But that won't take so long because you're so huge you can be seen from the moon." Kobe felt so free. He finally said what he thought. He defended his dreams for once. He looked at Alvida as she looked back at him darkly. She then roared at him and said, "Go to hell, you twerp." "I'm going to die," Kobe screamed as he saw the mace come closer to him. Luffy then stepped in front of him saying, "Well said, Kobe." He then smiled, "I'll take it from here." Kobe then looked at Alvida and saw that she was restrained by phantom hands. The moment that Luffy jumped to defend Kobe, Alvida felt something on her body as she was swinging her mace. She looked only to see arms sprouting out of everywhere of her body and grabbing her arm. She looked around and saw the girl smiling at her and crossing her arms over her chest in an odd fashion. She then said, "That's you, isn't it?" "Yes, as you can see I also ate a devil fruit. It's called the Hana fruit, which allows me to grow any part of my body anywhere I want and see." The girl explained with a mirth smile. Alvida tried to escape to wipe that smug-looking smile away, but the harder she tried, the stronger the grip she had. Luffy looked at Robin and said, "Thanks Robin, but you know a hit like that can't hurt me." "I know Luffy, but I just can't stand anyone insulting or hitting you," she said with a smile on her face. "Okay, it's time to end this." The boy then began to stretch his arm backward till it left the ship for a good mile. He then brought it back screaming, "Gum gum." Robin let her grip on Alvida go, letting the pirate lady fall forward as the phantom arms dissolved in flowery mist. She tried to compose herself, but it was too late. The fist connected with her stomach as Luffy said, "Pistol." And with that Alvida was launched into the air, never to be seen again, flying in the distance. Luffy then looked at her men and said, "Kobe is going to become a marine, got a problem with that?" The men then said, "No, sir." "Good, then get us a boat," Luffy said. And within a few moments, the men have already supplied them with a boat. Suddenly, the boat swayed violently as a cannonball crashed in the water. Robin then said, "I guess it's time to go." "Yeah," Luffy said as he boarded the boat. He then saw Kobe jump in it saying, "Wait for me." "Kobe, what are you doing here?" Luffy asked, confused. "This is your chance to become a marine." "What? Are you crazy or something? The Marines will think I'm also a pirate. I had to go somewhere else." The boy explained, with Robin agreeing with him as he untied the ropes. Luffy didn't get him. He just had to say he wasn't a pirate. It's that easy, isn't it? But right now, it was too late to back out. The boat hit the waves as the battle ensued on the noble's ship between the Alvida pirate and the Marines. Luffy then looked and saw an orange-haired girl in another boat with a huge sack. They saw each other for a brief moment as their eyes looked with one another, only for a cannonball to throw the trio of pirates away from her. The demonic swordsman. The sounds of fighting being emitted by the fighting going on the ship between the Marines and the remaining Alvida pirates began to decrease as the little boat holding the trio of the pink-haired boy and the odd pirate couple made their way further from it. Kobe looked over the side of the boat and squinted his eyes as hard as he can to see if the ship is still in sight. He couldn't see anything. This caused him to smile, breathing out a sigh of relief as he said, "Finally, we made it away from the fighting. That last cannonball must have thrown us pretty far away, didn't it guys?" he asked as he looked to his saviors. Luffy only laughed as he said to Robin, "That sure was fun, Robin. Reminds me of the time back fighting the animals in the Goa Kingdom." Robin smiled at Luffy as she replied, "I must admit that was quite thrilling." For a moment, Kobe only blinked. His mind couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. Did these two actually enjoy almost being killed? He then began screaming, "What's wrong with you two? What kind of people enjoy being almost killed?" Robin promptly ignored Kobe as she looked at her love and asked him, "Where to next, Captain?" Kobe arched his back with a stream of tears falling down as he said to no one in particular, "They're ignoring me." "I don't know really," he said, then looked at Kobe who was still crying. "Oi Kobe, what's the nearest island?" Kobe stopped and looked at the boy. "I think it's called Shell's Island." The boy smiled and said, "Then take us there. And from there we split ways as we buy supplies," Luffy said, shocking Kobe as he actually had a plan. "Luffy-san, you have a plan?" the boy asked, more than said. "Yes of course, what do you take me for, an idiot?" Luffy answered back. "No, but I didn't expect that from you." Luffy only huffed at that, making a pouty face at Kobe, which made the pink-haired boy apologize while Robin giggled at her boyfriend's adorable behavior. Suddenly an idea hit Luffy, so he looked at Robin saying, "Robin, and there's a guy the first one to recruit after we resupply." Robin arched an eyebrow and said, "Who?" wondering who was that individual that caught Luffy's eyes. "It's that guy that Beached Whale mentioned," he said, causing Robin to snicker while Kobe took a thinking position, remembering what Alvida said, "Zero, Zozo, Zello, Zolo." Kobe froze as a cold chill traveled down his spine. "Do you mean Zoro, as in Zoro the pirate hunter?" "Yeah, that's the guy." Luffy cheered happily. "Are you insane? Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Kobe yelled at them. "What, I'm just going to ask," Luffy replied back innocently. "Don't even ask, he'll kill you without a shadow of a doubt," Kobe told him. "How will I know that'll happen if I don't ask him?" Luffy argued. "Because he a demon on Earth. Believe me, he's a guy you want to stay as far away as possible from him, especially if you are a pirate," causing both teens to look at him with curiosity in their eyes. Seeing that they demanded more explanation, he elaborated, "Listen, Zoro is the walking embodiment of the devil. He is said to be a very ruthless savage who massacres his victims before he hands them over for their bounties. It's even said that he feeds the subordinates of his targets to tigers after he chops them up." He finished only to receive blank looks from both teens. "Oh, I see now. If that's the case," Luffy began to speak. During this time hope began to fill Kobe that Luffy's logical side was listening to him. All that disappeared as quickly as it appeared when he heard the rest of the sentence. "I definitely should ask him to join. In fact, I will make him join." Kobe began to panic, as Luffy looked over to the girl he loved. What do you think? A vicious bounty hunter who makes kibble for cats out of his victims. It would be madness not to meet him, Robin told him. Kobe looked between Luffy and Robin, wondering how he got stuck with these nutjobs, but suddenly an idea hit him, as a smile was making its way on his face. Well, last I heard is that he was caught by the Marines base on Shell's Island. Well, it seems we can't recruit him or go to Shell's Island. The boy said with the saddest voice he can muster, though he was truly happy. Why not, Kobe? Robin said, putting a halt to his thoughts. It's your chance to join the Marines. You can make your dream come true, she said, leaving him blinking. Then to Shell's Island, it is, Luffy said, making Robin smile due to his excitement. You two are insane, you'll die before you even ask Zoro. Hell, you'll wound up in a cell in the Marines base before you even see Zoro. This is imp. He was silenced by a whack to the head. Ouch. The boy whined. Why did you hit me? The boy complained. Because it seems the only way to shut you up. The boy replied, causing Kobe to look at Robin for some sympathy. He only received a shrug as Robin opened a book she managed to snatch from the noble's ship. Kobe frowned. He didn't like being tried like nothing. A part of him began to complain from always getting treated this way. The entire journey took a night to reach Shell's Island. As the sun rose on the horizon, it spread its rays into the world. And with those rays, Shell's Island began to grow in the view. Luffy smiled, thinking about recruiting Zoro, while Kobe was happy and shivering. Happy about his dream coming true, and shivering because he was afraid of seeing the infamous pirate hunter. When the boat reached the dock, Robin jumped onto the wooden docks, followed by Luffy, who wrapped his arm around her waist. She smiled and walked with him into the town. Kobe said, "Don't worry, I'll tie." The boy then noticed that no one was there. He frowned. He honestly felt like he was the third wheel on a romantic date. Tying the boat quickly, he ran up quickly to catch up with them. In the town, Luffy bought an apple from the vendor and gave it to Robin, who smiled at him, as she took a bite from it. Luffy looked around and asked, "Now, where is that Zoro guy?" The entire village then gasped in fear as many of them jumped back away from the couple. It would appear that Zoro's reputation precedes him, or at least scares people of him, Robin commented as she took another bit. Kobe, who just arrived, told them, "I told you he's a demon. He must have done something really horrible to have people afraid of him this much," he said, causing Robin to look at him as she finished her apple, giving the core to Luffy, who ate it. She hated it when people gave preemptive judgment over others that don't know. She knew Kobe was a good person, but he was too naive. He needed a lot to become a great Marine as he wanted. She hoped that this experience would give him a perspective of how the world truly works. "Kobe, you said that Zoro was held in the Marines base on the island. Where is it?" Luffy asked. Kobe's sweat dropped, looking at the very clear and vivid tower that held the word Marines on it. He said, "I think he is held inside that tower." Kobe then stopped, putting his hand on his chin, thinking, "From what I remember, the Marine base is led by Captain Morgan." The moment he mentioned the Marine base captain, the people around them grew 10 shades paler at the mention of Morgan than Zoro. All of them then ran away in fear. Kobe tilted his head in confusion. "I understand that they would be afraid of Zoro, but why are they afraid of Captain Morgan? I mean, he's a Marine, so he's a good guy." Luffy and Robin looked at each other while Kobe stared at them in confusion. While Luffy wanted to tell Kobe how the world truly works, Robin shook her head, telling him that it was best that he finds out by himself in mental conservation via their eyes. Finally, they reached an agreement. Robin looked at Kobe and said softly, "Kobe, the definition of good and bad is relatively broad. It is best that you keep an open mind about that. No Marine is inherently good, and no pirate is inherently evil." Kobe looked at her and argued, "What do you mean by that? Of course, Marines are the good guys." Robin softly smiled. When he sees the world, his view of the good and bad will be shattered so badly, it may affect him badly, but this was expected. Luffy then said, "Are we bad, Kobe?" Kobe was shocked by that question, and his mind came to a halt. He looked at his saviors, and he had no words to say. Seeing his state, Luffy sighed. "Never mind that. Let's go see Zoro," he said as he grabbed Robin's hand and ran with her to the base. Kobe fell back, truly feeling like a third wheel. He then yelled, "Wait for me." As the three reached the base, Kobe looked at it with tears in his eyes. His dream is coming true. He only needs to fill up the form and he'll get to become a Marine. He looked at his friends and said, "Listen, guys, I know after that I'll never be able to see you again. We'll also be enemies after this, but I'll always consider you my best. Look, Zoro is here." Luffy suddenly stopped him. He looked at the boy as he saw him hanging over the side of the wall, with Robin using her powers to sprout an eye and an ear over Luffy's forehead to see what he is seeing. Kobe then walks over to them. Of course, Zoro isn't going to be there in the open. He was cut off as Luffy stretched his arm, grabbing him and holding him over the wall. He then let go of the boy, causing the latter to scrabble to catch the ledge. "Luffy, are you mad? You could really?" His voice freezes as he noticed something, or rather someone in the field. "That's him, Rona Zoro," Kobe said. In the middle of the field, a man was tied to a post under the intense heat of the sun. He had green hair, and was wearing a white shirt that was clearly stained by sweat. Add to that was a green hamakiri was tied to his waist. He wore green pants and boots, and his left arm was a green bandana. Okay, so all I need to do is free Zoro, and ask him to join my crew, Luffy declared excitedly. We're not doing anything. How many times do I have to tell you this is a bad idea? Kobe blanched at him. I don't know. How many times did you tell me? Luffy asked with a smile. He's not going to accept your offer. He's going to kill you, Kobe said, trying to reason with his friend. Kobe, this is how Luffy is, so I suggest that you don't waste your breath. I believe in him, and you'll be surprised what he can do, Robin said. But this guy is a vicious murderer. He's best left here, Kobe argued, looking at the eye on Luffy's forehead, trying not to freak out. But how will I know if I don't ask him? Luffy responded to Kobe. Suddenly a rough voice caught all of their attention. Hey you, three, could you do me a favor and get lost? The voice was none other than that of Zoro, who looked at them with ghost white eyes, causing Kobe to flinch and almost fall, while Luffy and Robin didn't even notice the threatening tone. Luffy, please let's go. Kobe began to beg the straw hat wearing boy. He then noticed something. A little girl came propping a ladder against the wall at the same time, grabbing the couple's attention. The girl looks at them and puts a finger to her lips, telling them to be quiet. She then climbs the ladder and jumps to the other side of the wall. She then proceeds to run over to Zoro with a big smile on her face. Kobe begins to panic and says, we need to go and save her. Luffy only watched and remained quiet, wanting to see what happens, with Robin doing the same. The girl goes up to Zoro, who snarls at her. She continues on regardless. She then stands in front of him and says, hello, Mr. Zoro. Zoro didn't take too kindly to this and said, go away, kid, don't test my patience. The girl only smiles as she said, I have a surprise for you. He then pulls from under her shirt a box. Tada, onigiri. I made them for you, the girl told him with a huge smile. Zoro only glared at her with demonic eyes as he growled, listen, kid, I don't need your food. Now go away, before you get hurt. No, you didn't eat for 3 weeks now. The girl refused to listen to him. For the love, go already, the green-haired man screamed at the girl who didn't budge. Kobe, seeing this, frowned and said, what a monster. Luffy and Robin on the other hand didn't say anything, feeling there is something more going on here. Suddenly a burst of smug laughter made its way toward their ears, as a blond boy wearing a purple suit accompanied by 2 Marines made his way into the courtyard. Kobe sighed in relief. Thanks to the heavens, the Marines are here. The girl is safe. However, Luffy and Robin disagreed with him. Well, always rude, aren't you, Zoro? The blonde said. Is that a way to talk to the little girl? Shove it in your ear. The green-haired man growled, only to receive smug laughter from the blonde. Oh, Zoro, the blonde said. He then looked at the girl and saw what she was holding, so he said, onigiri, don't mind if I do. He then took one as the girl screamed at him, hey, that's not for you. As soon as he took a bite, he spit it out. He then shouted at the girl, did you make them with sugar? You use salt. Salt, damn it. He then smacked the rest of the food from the girl's hands, stomping on them, shocking Kobe and causing the trio of the pirate couple and pirate hunter to become angry. But why? The girl said as she sniffed her tears, trying to lift her ruined food. The blonde boy laughed at her and said, because I can. He then smiled darkly as he pointed to a sign and said, do you see that sign? That's what my dad put there. He's the captain of this base, so I can do what I want. The girl looked at the sign and her face paled. The sign said, anyone who helps the prisoner is to be executed. The girl looked at the blonde, who laughed, before looking at a Marine and said, you? The Marine stiffly looked over to him, hoping to not tell him to kill the girl. Throw out of the yard. The Marine breathed a sigh of relief. He then looked at the frightened girl and said, tuck into a ball. It will soften the fall. The girl nodded as the Marine walked and threw her over the wall. The girl screamed in fear as she soared through the air. Luffy then immediately jumped, catching the girl as Robin formed a bed of limbs to soften the fall. Luffy looked at the girl as he said, are you alright? The girl nodded. Luffy then looked at Robin and a clear shock up and reality hit Kobe and told them, take her home. I have some business to attend to. Kobe wanted to argue, but Robin put a hand over his mouth and nodded. You damn coward. Zoro snapped at the blonde. Ha ha ha, Zoro. I hope you didn't forget our agreement, the blonde reminded him. No, I didn't. I can't wait to see your face when the next week is up, the green-haired said. Yeah, sure. We'll see about that. The blonde laughed as he walked away from him. The green-haired then lowered his head. He then felt a shadow over him, looking up only to see the straw hat wearing idiot standing there. He glared with eyes trying to burn the boy as he said, didn't I tell you to leave? The boy only laughed as he said, I didn't want to. Luffy then said, they say you're strong yet you're tied here. He stopped as the man continued glaring, I have an offer, join me on my pirate crew, and I'll free you from here. Zoro blinked as he said, okay, you do know I'm a pirate hunter, right? Yes, but you're also known as a demon. You're already known as a bad person, so why don't you join me? Luffy reasoned. Zoro once again blinked before taking a more serious look. I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to survive this month without food and water, and then leave. Wow, I wouldn't last a day. Luffy said, causing Zoro to say, this says who has more willpower. So that's a no on becoming a pirate? Luffy asked. I've already done many bad deals. I don't need more ones, he said before looking at Luffy saying, now leave. Okay. I can see you're in a bad mood. I'll come later and we can talk. Luffy said, walking away, but he stopped as Zoro told him, can you pick it up and toss it over for me to eat? He said as he looked over to onigiri on the ground. Really, it's only OW, Luffy said. Zoro said, do you have a problem? Then Luffy shrugged, holding the dirtied food, throwing it into Zoro's mouth. The man chewed into it bitterly and then swallowed it. Nasty, isn't it? Luffy asked, only for Zoro to say, no, it was delicious. Tell the girl I loved it. Luffy left with a smile as he thought about how the rumors about Zoro were highly exaggerated. He really liked it. The little girl now known as Rika asked happily. Yeah, he told me himself, Luffy said as he sat with Robin, Rika, and Kobe. Robin smiled at him for what he did. Kobe then said something, I don't get it. Zoro is supposed to be a monster and the Marines are the good guys. Isn't that right? No, Rika screamed, shocking the boy before she spoke quietly. The Marines don't protect us here, and brother Zoro isn't a monster. The girl then began to tell her story. Here, we live under the rule of Captain Morgan where basically everything happens as he wants. If you do anything that he doesn't like, he kills you. His son Helmeppo uses his father's status to protect himself. One day, he walked with his pet wolf into my mom's restaurant, and it almost ate me, but Zoro killed it. When Helmeppo tried to complain, Zoro pointed a sword to his face. She smiled, remembering how he made the spoiled boy shiver in fear. Helmeppo then said he was going to execute everyone on the island. So he made a deal with Zoro that if he can survive an entire month without eating or drinking. It's been 3 weeks for now, she finished. Kobe, who didn't get it yet, but why, he just couldn't imagine the Marines doing something so wrong, and Zoro being the good guy. No, there was something wrong with the story. It just had to. He was suddenly brought back from his thoughts when the doors of the bar broke open with Helmeppo entering with the 2 Marines following him. He looked around with a sneer as he looked at the people, and said with a commanding tone to the girl's mother, give the best dirt you call here food, and the whatever swell you call wine. The woman nodded and hurried to the kitchen to finish the order. The entire restaurant was quiet, and if anyone looked intensely they could have noticed an orange-haired girl sitting in the background. As the food was served to the boy, he said, well, look at that. He said, pointing to the direction of the yard. I thought that Rorona Zoro would have kicked the bucket, but he's still fighting. I don't know what to do. He feigned a dramatic pose of tragedy before he took a happy stance. I know what will help me. Tomorrow I will execute him. Yeah, that'll help me. Yes, tomorrow I'll kill him. So everyone must attend. He said in a joyous voice, looking around only to receive horrified faces. Luffy on the other hand was glowing with anger. To him, a promise or a deal for that matter should be honored no matter what, but what happened next caused him to flip. Helmeppo looked around enjoying the horror he induced on the people's faces. His eyes then laid on a very beautiful girl. She had a shiny black hair, a very gorgeous figure, and what attracted him very much was her beautiful blue eyes. He then went over to her and said, why, hi there. He said as he put his face into hers, ignoring the boy beside her was practically about to burst into flames. Why don't we go out of this dump, and let buy something beautiful? He asked in what he saw as a smooth voice. Robin didn't even humor him as she turned her head around, and didn't look at him. Seeing he was ignored, Helmeppo became very angry, so he said again, can you at least talk to me? The girl again didn't say anything. This time he tried a more physical approach as he grabbed the girl's face, turning her toward him. Luffy, who kept calm during this whole thing, due to a promise he made to Robin after a fight they had over acting extremely jealous, lost it. He then punched the boy, sending him falling, and hitting the wall. The 2 Marines he was with were shocked and not sure what to do. Helmeppo then stood up and said, do you know who I am? Who dare you hit me? Luffy then replied, do I look I care whour? He then readied himself for another punch, only for Kobe to stop him. Stop, Luffy. He's the captain's son, the boy reasoned. Luffy told him, so what? He said as Robin approached him. She looked him in Luffy's eyes and grabbed his hand, gently kissed it and said, I hope it didn't hurt you. Luffy only blinked at her. Helmeppo then went out grumbling but took a last glance at the girl who he tried to hit on. When she saw him, she made a face that showed she was disgusted by him, hurting his pride even more. Luffy then looked at Robin and said, we're freeing Zoro today, and we'll make him join our crew. The girl nodded her head. Kobe, who was stunned, then yelled at him, are you insane? You should run, not go fighting. You hit the captain's son. You dug your own grave. I don't care, he said as he left the restaurant with Robin following. Kobe was shocked but followed them outside, screaming, you can't just walk into a Marine. He was stopped by the look that Luffy and Robin gave him, making him feel like the wrong party here. Luffy then said, Kobe, listen. I'm going to become Pirate King, so I'm not going to let anyone stop me from doing what I want. Robin then said, Kobe, we're pirates. We're free to do what we want. So how about you find something useful to do instead of keeping people down? With that, both of them left, leaving Kobe with a serious sense of guiltiness. He felt extremely useless when he was going to keep standing in your own way. In an office inside the Marine Tower, a man spoke with a very tough voice. Aren't first the greatest Marine ever to walk the earth? The man was a huge burly man with blonde hair, but what stood about him was his left arm and his jaw. His jaw was metallic and fixed, while his arm was an axe. He also wore a light trench coat over his captain uniform. His vice captain said, of course, you are sir. Inwardly, he was saying that the man was a stain to the Marine's reputation. True, and today the entirety of the East Blue will see my greatness. This statement caused his inferior to go wide, afraid that his captain will harm the villagers more than he already is. Today, that statue of me will arrive on the island, so I need to do a job for me. Yes, sir. Breathing a sigh of relief. Go, and inform the people that the taxes are going to be doubled this month, the captain said. But sir, we already doubled them last month. People just can't keep up with them. Morgan looked at him and said, is this insubordination I hear? He said as he lifted his axe. And no, sir, luckily for the Marine. The door blasted open with Helmeppo charging in. Dad, there's a boy and a girl I want to execute. In the yard, Zoro woke up from blacking out again. It was the 6th time he passed out this day from extreme dehydration. He looked as the sun burned his head. He felt lightheaded. The earth was turning around him. He truly felt like he was being tortured alive. He then began to think about his life. He has left his house when he was young, going from one dojo to another, beating the best they had to offer. It was so easy that he began laughing at every dojo he used to come to. Then he came to that swordsman dojo and challenged the best they had to offer. He defeated them quickly, and when she arrived, he laughed at the thought that girl would defeat him, only to have his butt handed over to him moments later. From that day forward, he began to train very hard. No day would go and he wouldn't train. But for his dismay, he was always got his butt handed over to him over and over and over. Until their 2001st fight, he brought real swords this time and told that the winner will eliminate the other. Again, as if it's the law of nature, he lost. But then he saw her crying when he asked her why. She said that she was a girl and it was her destiny to grow weak and he'll beat her eventually. He then refused such a proposition, saying that if he beat her, it would be D, not her being a girl. They then agreed that they would both try to become the greatest swordsmen in the world. But destiny is truly a cruel mistress. Days later, she died after falling over the stairs. He felt so cheated that someone as strong as her died in such a stupid way. He then took her beloved sword and swore that his name would reach the stars for his and her sake. In his delirious state, he began to say her name over and over again. Kuina, Kuina. Who's Kuina? A sweet feminine voice broke him out of his trance. He looked only to see the same straw hat wearing kid and some girl this time along with him. None of your business, he said with devilish eyes. We came to tell you something. The girl said. Yeah, that helmet head guy is going to kill you tomorrow, Luffy informed the swordsman. What? No way, we have a deal, the green-haired man tried to argue. He doesn't look like a trustworthy person to me, Luffy said, cutting him off. Although Zoro hated to admit, the straw hat wearing idiot was right. He took a deep breath and tried to see the silver lining in his situation, but he couldn't. He then growled and said, that bastard. The couple looked at him and thought he was taking it better than they expected. Robin actually thought that he would break the pole and try to find the blonde pervert to smack him with it. You know, Luffy started, we can free you from here. This perked the Tide Man's attention, but you'll join my crew. A vein popped on Zoro's forehead as he said, get it through your skull, I'm not joining you. Robin then said, it's either that or become cheese when the purple-wearing buffoon comes. Zoro glared at her, though she didn't flinch under his gaze. He took a breath, knowing that getting angry won't do him any good. Then he said, let's suppose I want to join you. I don't even have my swords. That Helmeppo idiot took them from me. Really, all I need is to get your swords, Luffy said excitedly. Zoro then smacked his head on the post. Listen, I'm not joining. He looked only to see Luffy running in the opposite direction of the base. Hey idiot, the base is in the opposite direction, he told Luffy, who looked back smiling. Oh, thanks for that, Zoro, he said, but then he did something that made the swordsman think he was going crazy. Luffy stretched his arms as he talked to Robin. Robin, free Zoro. Only for the girl to nod. He then screamed, Gum Gum Rocket, as he went flying through the air towards the base. Zoro squinted his eyes as he said, I think that the sun is beginning to get to me. He then looked at the girl, so you and him? He then asked, so what are you going to do now, sprout wings or claws to free me? The girl giggled at the swordsman as she crossed her hands over her chest, and arms began to sprout over his body. The arms then worked on ropes holding his body, untying him. The swordsman could only gape at this. When the ropes were untied, Robin ran over and held the swordsman as he said, yeah, that pretty much maxed out my capacity for weirdness today. The swordsman then let go of the girl and leaned over to the post flexing his muscles. Robin then said, "You're not joining us, are you?" "Oh yeah, joining Rubber Brain and Handy Girl. Who wouldn't want that?" the green-haired man said sarcastically. Robin pouted at him, causing him to say, "Now, I didn't make any promise to join you. You helped me out of your own free will. I'm just reaping the benefits of your offer." Robin quirked an eyebrow. "So you were fine here, as come morning the buffoon will come to fill you with metal." Zoro bit his lip as what she was saying was true, "But I can't force you to join. We want you to join us." "Well, princess, we can't get whatever we want," Zoro told her. Robin smirked at him as she said, "I know that, but I know that you'll join eventually once you get to know Luffy." Zoro wanted to say something, but something caught his attention. "Isn't that the boy that was with that rubber idiot earlier?" Robin looked to see Kobe climbing the side of the wall only for him to fall down with a harsh thud, causing both the dark-haired girl and the green-haired man to cringe. Then they both went to check on him. As Luffy soared through the air, he looked and began to think where to find Zoro's swords. He thought about it and said, "That's it, the helmet-head idiot must know where they are." He then looked upwards and said, "I'll begin looking up on the roof for him." On the roof currently, a bunch of Marines was sure that they were about to break their backs as they were lifting something. "Put you back into it, men," Morgan said, causing his men to groan inwardly. "Look at this statue," he said, "this is a sign of my greatness. It'll be a sign for all people of the East Blue to see." His men continued to pull, putting everything they had into it, but suddenly a high-pitched sound grabbed his attention. It was his son. He groaned as his son yelled at him, "Father, forget this already. What are you going to do about that boy who hit me, and that girl who embarrassed me?" Morgan turned his head to face his son, and asked, "Helmeppo, do you know why I didn't hit you before?" The boy shivered as he said, "Because you love me too much." "No," the man answered as he swung a hard haymaker into his son's face, "because you were never worth it, till you dared and yelled at me." Morgan then held his son by the scruff of his shirt and said, "I'm no low private you can order around. I'm the one who makes the calls here and says what goes and what doesn't. And anyone who disagrees can answer to this," he said, lifting his axe to his son's neck. "Got that?" he asked him. "Crystal clear," the boy replied. "Good, now I heard about a little girl feeding the prisoner. Did you deal with her?" "What?" Helmeppo initially asked, confused, then said, "Yeah, of course. I dealt with her." "Good, then she's executed." The teen paled as he said, "What? Of course not, she's just a little girl. I can't execute her." Morgan looked at him, glaring so hard he can melt him. He wanted to yell at him, but he saved his breath. His son was always weak. He then looked at one of the men following his son, and said, "Do you remember what the girl looked like?" The Marine with a horrible knot forming in his stomach nodded. "Good, then go find her and get her ready for execution." If this was any other time, he would have said yes, but this was different. "No," he simply replied. "What?" Morgan growled at the Marine who dared to defy him. "Did you just say no?" "Yes, she's just a little girl. Killing her is just inhuman." The Marine still defied him. Morgan breathed out and said, "I'm going to say just one more time, go bring the girl and ready her for execution." "No, I'd rather die," he said defiantly. "Fine by me," Morgan said as he raised his axe to cut the Marine in half. Suddenly a scream brought their attention. Everyone looked only to see a teen flying through the air and over the top. Luffy saw that his plan worked, or at least worked too well. He was flying over the roof. To stop himself, he grabbed one of the ropes he saw stopping himself. However, this caused the statue to break in half as the men caught the momentum from the boy, causing them to let go and the statue fall. Morgan looked with wide eyes at his broken statue and said, "How dare you?" Luffy then looked at the statue and said, "Oops, my bad, I'm sorry." Morgan fumed, saying, "You destroy my symbol of greatness, and all you can say is, sorry, you're going to." He was cut by Luffy seeing Helmeppo and going over to him, as he said, "There you are, come on, let's go." He spoke with the blonde as if they're best friends, grabbing him and running. Morgan could only gape. He was about to bark orders to his men to go and grab that kid until some Marine yelled, "Sir, the prisoner is free. He's along with a girl and a young boy." Morgan began to wonder where all did these people who dared to defy him come from. In the halls of the tower, Luffy was running with Helmeppo in his arms. Hand run through the corridor. He then asked the blonde, "Where's your room?" The blonde was able to speak as he said, "It's back down the 2 corridors to the right." Luffy groaned as he said, "Couldn't you say that earlier?" He then began to run backward as the Marines surrounded them. They said, "Put the captain's son down, or we will shoot you." Luffy then lifted the blonde using him as a shield and said, "Shoot, I don't care, but I think you will." The blonde began to panic as he screamed, saying, "Don't shoot," waving his arms as Luffy ran away from the Marines towards the blonde's room. Down in the yard, Robin helped Kobe up and said, "Kobe, what are you doing here?" "I'm following my dreams." The boy replied, making her smile. Zoro also smiled since he can also see that the boy changed from earlier. "I'm sorry I tried to stop you and Luffy earlier." The boy began apologizing. "I'm sorry that I was holding you down. In fact, I was holding myself down without even knowing it, but now I will not be like that anymore. First, we'll take down that horrible captain, and I will show him how true Marine is." The boy's voice was cut as a bullet sheared through his flesh, causing him to cry out in pain. Robin immediately went to Kobe and held him. Zoro looked at the responsible party and growled. Morgan then came inside the field as he said, "Rona Zoro, for the crimes of defying my authority, you are sentenced to be executed with this witch and this child." Zoro growled at him as he stood, silently hoping that the rubber fool brings his swords. Back in the tower, Luffy has reached the blonde's room and opened only to be met by a horrible sight. What the hell is wrong with this room? He looked at the room as he felt himself fight the urge to puke. It looks like a girl's room, he said, looking at the dominant color in the room, but extremely pink. He now pushed aside the horrific look of the room, and asked the blonde, "Now where are Zoro's swords?" He looked only to see the boy has fallen unconscious. The boy then dropped the idiot unceremoniously on the ground with a harsh thud. He began to look around the room till his eyes caught something causing him to smile. There on the wall were 3 swords. He looked confused, asking himself which of them was Zoro's sword. He shrugged, saying, "Once I take them to Zoro, he'll know which one is his sword." Then walked over to the window. He saw that the Marines have surrounded his friends and smiled, wanting to see Robin using her power. Down in the yard, the Marines have surrounded the trio of the green-haired man, the dark-haired girl, and the pink-haired boy. Morgan then looked at them and sneered, "You'll all do fine," as an example of what happens when people defy Captain Morgan, axe hand, he said, smiling. "Men," he yelled at his Marines, "ready yourselves." He shouted at his men, who immediately raised their rifles and pointed them towards the 3. He then said, "Load." The men then loaded their guns with ammo. "Now," Morgan said, raising his axe hand. "Fire," he yelled, lowering his axe hand. Zoro then quickly stood in front of the other 2. He saw his life flash in front of his eyes. He saw his dream go away from him, so he said quietly, "Sorry, Kuina. I guess I'm not going to be the greatest swordsman in the world." Robin, who heard him, then crossed her arms over her chest and said, "Not quite." She then yelled, "Duo's fleur." Immediately, as the words were shouted out, arms erupted from the arms of the men who were aiming their guns at them, raising the guns in the air, causing them to shoot their ammo in the sky. Zoro looked at her and said, "Well, that's quite handy." She laughed at his pun. Morgan could only fume at this. How dare they continue to defy him? He then yelled at Robin, "You, witch. You ate a devil fruit, didn't you?" Robin looked at him and smirked as she said, "Well, that's true. And here I thought that you're just a mindless brute. I guess that you proved me wrong. I can rank you as a monkey-level intelligence." Morgan's blood boiled as the girl mocked and began to breathe heavily as he said to her, "You're going to pay for that, you devil fruit freak." "Yeah, I don't think so. You're the one going to pay for all the pain you caused to the innocent people of this island," Robin replied. Suddenly a red and blue blur made its way on the field, causing a cloud of dust. When the dust was cleared, Luffy stood there with 3 swords tied to his back. He looked back at Robin and said, "Robin, is everything alright?" "Yes, Luffy. Nothing that I can't handle." The girl replied back as Luffy now turned and faced the enemy. Zoro then asked the question that everyone wanted to ask, "Who in the world are you guys?" Kobe smiled as he said, "These are Robin and Luffy." He looked at them and remembered all the good stuff they did for him. The greatest pirates you can ever find in the world.